Minutes for the June 10th planning board meeting.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Okay. The first order of business tonight is a continued public hearing for 475 Hancock Street. And I believe Mr. Stevens has a letter.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, through you to the board, the department received the following communication from Charles Jenkins. He's the Community Engagement and Development Permitting Manager for Blue Sky Utility. Hello, Rob. This email is dated July 21st. Hello, Rob. I hope this note finds you well. Thank you for your call back the other day. Based on our conversation, we are inclined to rescind our application as opposed to asking for a continuance at the upcoming July meeting. As we discussed, we need to do more discovery with the landowner on the remediation required and get the response from the city before we redesign the project. Therefore, as not to waste everyone's time, we will withdraw without prejudice our application until these issues are resolved. We hope to move forward again in a month or so, depending on the progress with this process. As always, I appreciate your efforts. Best regards, Charles Jenkins, Community Engagement and Development Permitting Manager. This has to do with some citations by inspectional services to the primary use of the site at 475, which is currently a market. There was some stormwater and grease trap issues that needed to be cleaned up. So that is the request of the proponent. It would be a withdrawal without prejudice at this point, and the department would support that.
Okay, take a motion for that.
Motion to accept the withdrawal without prejudice.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. All right, the next order of business is a continued public hearing for 45 Station Street, Planning Board case number 2026-06. Councilor Foley.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Patrick Foley, business address 265 Willard Street. I'm the attorney for the project. We had our hearing back in June, and after that hearing, we were told that we should do a neighborhood meeting, which we did. It was attended by a few of the neighbors. It went very well. And Chi actually has a few minor changes with our civil that he's gonna go over right now.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Chi Man, registered civil engineers on the project. We have received peer reviews comments, and we have prepared a set of revised plan that was submitted to the department, and also respond letter to both the peer review and DPW review. All those reviews are pretty much housekeeping, clarifications, and adding details. So the site design didn't really change. It's just like adding details like sewer profile and such. So the contents of the project stay exactly the same as the original submittals. Basically, it's just, clarifying what type of curb, what type of fence, and stuff like that. We did, however, last week submit a comprehensive landscaping plan for the projects. And I think pretty much we have also received another follow-up comments from DPW, and we addressed that by email already. So it's really nothing new as far as like how the site layout or the building layout and such, and parking layout. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you, Chi. Thank you. And that's comments. We do have one comment letter here, written today. 45 Station Street. This was to Mrs. Ryan. It says, "Thank you for reaching out regarding project at 45 Station Street. As the owner of 2 condos in the building next door to 75 Station Street, my husband and I are both very much concerned with the development of our neighborhood, as are the other owners, and especially as a treasurer of the condo association. For many years, the house next door has added no value to our neighborhood. Now we have a wonderful opportunity to remedy that. Having met with the developer, I now understand that he is taking great pain and expense to do such things. Design a water retention and conservation measures which will benefit many surrounding properties. Supply more adequate parking, unlike many of the existing homes on the street. Plan for landscape and design that is both beautiful and low maintenance with seasonal interest year-round. Design boundary walls and fences that enhances everyone's enjoyment for their properties. For me personally, I especially like the little touches, the farmer's porch on the front building with landscaping between it, and then the streets. This is a great example of what the city should encourage. It's thoughtful, well-designed, and will add great value to the neighborhood. Please vote yes. Thank you, Margaret Lombard, owner of 55 Station Street. That's the one correspondent. Now, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone that would wish to speak on 45 Station Street? In the back? Oh, sorry, Counselor. These are the reading glasses. I can't see way back there.
Virginia Ryan, Ward 4 City Council. Good evening, Chair people. I just wanted to let you know that we did have a community meeting, and though it wasn't very well attended, the enthusiasm for the project is well thought of throughout the community. The current building there right now just doesn't benefit the street at all and the community. So it would definitely be a beautiful addition to the street and increase the value of the families there. That's it. I approve of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on it? Seeing none, I will take a motion to close the hearing on Station Street.
Motion to close?
Second it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Does the department have a recommendation, Mr. Stevens?
Yes, through you to the board, after consideration of the site plan accompanying documents and the comments received from city staff, the peer review consultant, the department recommends the board approve site plan review under Section 17, Title 17, Section 9.5.1, site plan review and special permit under Section 5.1.17, parking waiver subject to the below special and general conditions. Special condition 1, the applicant shall obtain all applicable findings, variances, special permits if needed from the City of Quincy Zoning Board of Appeal. 2, the applicant shall submit a construction management plan to be filed and approved prior to the issuance of the building permit. This shall include the locations of stockpile and/or staging areas for construction equipment and materials. The applicant shall also address construction period traffic impacts by providing a detailed sequence of construction and addressing any space constraints and detailing how they'll be addressed as construction progresses. 3, the applicant shall reconstruct the sidewalk along the entire property frontage of Station Street with ADA, AAB compliant sidewalk as specified by the Department of Public Works. 4, prior to the issuance of an occupancy permit, the applicant shall submit and record at the Norfolk County Registry of Deeds an operation and maintenance plan for the project stormwater system that includes the management system owners, an estimated operation and maintenance budget, a schedule for all routine and non-routine maintenance tasks to be undertaken, snow management plan showing snow storage areas and locations of BMPs in each treatment train along with discharge points, winter salt and sand use restrictions, if any. Inspections shall be conducted by a qualified professional such as a civil engineer or environmental engineer. 5, the applicant shall conduct a pre-demolition asbestos survey of any existing structures to be demolished. If there's asbestos-containing materials present, they must be removed by a licensed contractor, and post-abatement inspection must be performed by a DLI-certified project monitor. Walkthrough inspection conducted by the health department is required prior to demolition. 6, the applicant shall consult with the Quincy Health Department on noise mitigation measures for construction-related noise-generating activities to comply with local and state regulations. 7, the applicant shall submit a written rodent control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said plan must be designed for the duration of the project and include the name and contact information of a licensed pest control operator to be retained by the project proponent for the duration of the project. Scope of the proposed plan for the control of rodents, including number, location, and monitoring frequency of bait stations, as well as the anticipated length of service. 8, the applicant shall develop and submit a written dust control plan to the Quincy Health Department for review and approval prior to any site activity. Said dust control plan is to be implemented during any site activities to ensure compliance with state air quality regulations. 9, the applicant shall comply with the city's tree protection ordinance, Quincy Code Chapter 311. And that would conclude the department's recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens. What are the wishes of the board?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, guys. Okay. The next order of business is a public hearing on 94 Greenleaf Street, Planning Board Case Number 2026-07. This public hearing shall be conducted to review the applicant of Boston Property Management, 500 Victory Road, Quincy, Mass. 02171 for site plan review on the Quincy zoning ordinance, Title 17, Section 9.5.1 site plan review, and 5.1.17 parking waiver. The applicant proposes the removal of an existing rooming house building and a garage, and the construction of 6 new 3-story townhouse units and 2 buildings, along with garages and surface parking for a total of 12 parking spaces. The proposal will also include professionally designed drainage controls and landscaping. The property contains 14,000 square feet of land and is located at 94 Greenleaf Street. The subject property is located within a residential B zoning district and is shown on the assessor's map 115, Lot 2. Councilor Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Edward Fleming. I am here on behalf of Property Management, Boston Property Management, related to the property at 94 Greenleaf Street. A little background on Boston Property Management. Boston Property Management is a Quincy-based company. They're a Quincy development company and management company. They've been very actively involved in the city of Quincy for a number of years throughout the neighborhood. In fact, they've done quite a bit of work in the neighborhood that we're talking about tonight, the Greenleaf Street neighborhood. A number of years ago, they constructed a large condominium building at 999 Hancock Street, which is directly across from the former Central Middle School building. They then developed a building right behind that on Bridge Street, another condominium building, both of which were very well received by the city and provided for substantial housing for folks within the Quincy housing district. They also did a building on Marymount Road, which is very similar in nature, smaller in size. This property at 94 Greenleaf Street is a 14,000 square foot parcel of land, and as you indicated, Mr. Chairman, it's located within a Residence B zoning district. Right now on the site is a 20-room, 10-bedroom rooming house, which is really inconsistent with a lot of the housing in the area. The map that's on the board tonight kind of shows you the makeup of the Greenleaf Street neighborhood. And what we did is we highlighted a lot of the other multifamily housing units that are built there. 20 units at 112 Greenleaf Street, 19 units at 118 Greenleaf Street, 9 units right next door to this property at 86 Greenleaf Street, another 18 units at 66, and so on, 40 units down the end of the street, closer to the Hancock Street neighborhood. This neighborhood is really a mix of a lot of different housing, but none of it is the transient housing that exists at the site today, which is a rooming house. So we're really looking to change the character of the neighborhood to be more consistent with the Greenleaf Street neighborhood. This, as I indicated, this abuts 2 different properties, one at 86 Greenleaf Street, which is a 9-unit condominium building, And then on the right side of the property, there are two lots that were created a number of years ago that created two 4-unit buildings on a very similar size parcel as the parcel we're dealing with tonight, which is 14,000 square feet. So the density of this proposal is very consistent with what's existing in the neighborhood as it stands today. So the proposal that's before you tonight is to remove the rooming house use on the property and the building that sits on the site, and replace it with 6 townhouse-style units. Those units will be for sale for private ownership. The townhouses, which Glenn will talk about in more detail, I'm joined tonight actually by John Hanson and Jim Burke, who was our engineer, John Hanson from Boston Property, and also Glenn Hoffman, who was our architect. And Glenn will talk in more detail about the townhouses, but they are 3 stories in height, which are very consistent with other townhouses in the community. 3 of the units will provide for 3 bedrooms, attracting family-style living in those units, and then 2-bedroom units on the other 3. There's 2 parking spaces provided for the larger units, the 2-bedroom units, under the building in garage parking, and 1 garage space provided for the 2-bedroom units. In total, there's 12 parking spaces provided on the site to provide from some additional visitor parking spaces. There's about 1,500 square feet of green space or open yard being provided on the site, both behind the structure and also along the 10-foot buffer area on the right-hand side of the building. We think that this is actually going to add some nice, attractive green space and certainly usable green space for the residents. What's being requested tonight of this body is site plan approval and also a special permit parking waiver. We had an opportunity to meet with the neighbors, with Councilor Jacobs hosted a neighborhood meeting. The folks that showed up, although it wasn't a largely attended meeting, the folks that did come were abutting neighbors, the gentleman that lived at 86, and also the gentleman who owned the properties next door. When they heard that we were eliminating a rooming house, they were quite pleased. They want to see, they want to eliminate some of the transient housing in the neighborhood, and they were really thrilled that these were going to be privately owned and for sale units. So overall, I think that the response from those gentlemen was good. A lot of really good questions were raised during our meeting. A lot of back and forth. I think there were some questions about privacy, some questions about the height of the building and the impact that it would have. But overall, I believe that they left the meeting, seeming to be pleased with the proposal that was presented to them. In addition to this body, we also need approval from the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I just wanted to highlight, and you may or may not have been made aware of this, but on July 1st, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts actually changed 40A section, 40A, which is the ordinance that controls zoning in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And the goal of the changes was actually to encourage the creation of new housing within the area, where they actually made it easier for applicants to obtain variances. They made it easier to extend approvals because there's enormous concern in the Commonwealth to create housing. This is a great opportunity to create housing. It's a great opportunity to create ownership housing, and it's a great opportunity to create housing within close proximity to the public transportation. As you know, the T it was within walking distance, and downtown Quincy is as well. So we think this is really a good fit for the community, and we'd ask that you consider this seriously. On that note, I'd like to turn this over to Glenn Hoffman, let Glenn walk through the proposal with you, and then Jim Burke's here to talk about engineering-related matters. Thank you. Glenn?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the board. Thank you for having us. For the record, my name is Glenn Hoffman. I work with GPH Design. My address is 1 Adams Street in Milton, Mass. And as I spoke of, we're here to talk about Greenleaf. I'll walk you through the design real quick. It's 6 units, as you mentioned. It's 3 2-bedroom units and 3 3-bedroom units. The two-bedroom units are around 1,788 square feet. That's including parking. Without parking, the units themselves are around 1,206. And the three-bedroom units are around 1,598 to 1,600 square feet of living space, plus the 582 square feet of garage space, which brings them to about 2,180 square feet. So they're good-sized units, but they're not,
You can control that.
not oversized. I'm fine, thank you. With that, can we get to the other floor plans up there?
You can control.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's what you were telling me. Thank you, sir. So this is the site plan. As you said, it's a one drive aisle, 10-foot buffer zone on the back. We're set back from the street, and I'll talk more about the street front in a minute. We tried to pay close attention to the fact that Quincy likes good street frontage in particular with these townhome projects, so we tried to be respectful of that. This is the ground floor plan, as he said, two-car garage with the 3 bedrooms and 1 car with the 2. Very similar. Let's skip through all these. This is the first floor plan. The first floor plan is very open concept, open kitchen, with island, open living area with gas fireplaces. We try to do a little separation between the stair and the bigger unit. Half bath on that level as well. And that's also similar. On the bedroom level, we've got a primary, in the 2 bedrooms, we have a primary bedroom with bath and a public bath with the other 1 bedroom. The 3-bedroom units, very similar. We've got the primary bedroom suite with ensuite bathroom and the 2 other bedrooms with a bath between. I'm going to skip real quick through the elevations just because I think the renderings tell the tale a little better. As Ed spoke of, we did meet with the neighborhood, and they did have some really good, it was a really good discussion. We went back and forth on a few things, and one of the big concerns was the street frontage. We want this building to look like it belongs, like it's part of the neighborhood vernacular. So we try to be respectful of that with our material choices. It's why we added the farmer's porch at the front. So the entry to that end unit is from the street, not from the side. I'll skip through some of these other. This is the back end of the property. Similar unit, but with the doors at the front. And that's, good indication of how the building will be perceived from the street level. And we did go back and forth with how to make that front elevation work. We didn't want it to be boxy. We wanted it to be very, residential in scale, despite it being such a, long building. It's also why we also discussed at one point of having this be one building, and it's why one of the reasons we broke it up is we wanted to keep the scale down to a neighborhood level. And you want to wait on questions and let
No, good job, man.
Okay, so any architectural questions I can address now?
Just looking at the drawing, the alternate parking space at the end of, you can go back, the picture
Yep.
it actually shows a car down the end of the alternate.
Yeah, it does, but those are those 2 spaces.
So I guess, what are the plans for when it's snow, well, first of all, I guess all the rubbish removal will be, everybody will have their own individual cans inside the garages,
That's correct.
right? And then, so you won't have any dumpsters outside?
No.
And what about for snow now? So if anybody's parked down there, because the 3-bedroom, 2 car spaces, the other one's 1 car space with 2 bedrooms. So you're gonna end up with cars, like, out in the street, or you really don't have much room to park them in that row of the access to get into the garages there.
Okay.
And if it snows out, you really don't have much room, so.
Well, the hope is that we can utilize some of the storage space in the rear of the site to store some snow, heavy snowfall.
Yeah.
But certainly, that will have to be discussed with the condominium and written into the condominium bylaws that snow in certain heavy snowstorms, it's gonna have to be removed from the site in order to maintain and keep these spaces open. Because the goal is to try to make sure that those spaces are available for guests and for additional parking so that they don't park in the street. They can park in Greenleaf Street, but we certainly don't want to add to that.
And not in a really heavy condition, obviously, but on a, 6 to 8 inch. There's a strip here that, for some reason, it's not graphically showing up in here, but this is 26 and a half feet wide, yeah, so I think some of the snow will go off to the side, but obviously, in a heavy snow condition, that's not gonna be the case. You're gonna have to store it towards the back, like Ed said.
Just, don't misread me. I like the idea that what you guys are doing here, I think the rooming house as opposed to like this is, I think, gonna add to the neighborhood. So I'm not like saying I'm against it per se, what I'm trying to say is like, hey, the other people that are living around there, that have probably been parking in the same parking spot for 32 years, out in front of their house, are gonna come out there next Tuesday after the time and go, how come there's another car there? Who's gonna do that?
Understood.
You know what I'm saying?
Wait. If you're going to address, you got to address from the podium, Mr. Fleming.
That's it for me, sir.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? Member Foley?
I like the presentation from the street. My question is on the rear, okay, that's good, right there. What do we have for a setback on that rear elevation?
10
lower
feet.
right? 10 feet.
To the back of the building is 10 feet from the property
Okay.
line.
So I was looking at the floor plans. I understand, you can see particularly in the lower right there, the two end units, the 3-bedroom units, nice sized doorway, usable deck space and the staircase. The middle unit, not so. Okay, I understand the doorway because there's a powder room just inside. But that deck is gonna be a little bit of their living space outdoors. And so 3 of the units get kind of gypped.
It's kind of a great comment, because we do have the room to extend that deck.
And
if we
that's
need
what I
to.
was looking
Yeah.
at. I could see you don't have the room for the door.
No, but we could
But you
definitely
have the
extend
room
the
for the
deck.
decks. And, you know, that's the little bit that will allow somebody to put a chair and a table
Yep.
out there. And other than that, I think it's great. That was the only thing that caught me.
No, that's a great comment, and I see the
You
owner
know,
shaking the
it would
agreement
just
too,
make
so.
it's an amenity for whoever's gonna live there.
Yep.
And I thank you for listening.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I appreciate it. I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other questions from the board? Okay. I just have a couple, not comments, I just have a couple comments, actually. I think the building looks nice, but as, you know, the parking, a little concerned with the parking because there are going to be people living in there and there could be more than 3 cars, I mean 2 cars in a building, so parking's going to be an issue possibly. But it is a good-looking building. And as I tell all the developers that come into the city of Quincy, if you're going to be using a building in the city of Quincy, please consider the use of Quincy residents, of the men and the women, because there's a lot of people in the city that can build projects like this. So please take that into consideration. And that's it for me. This is a public hearing.
I think there's civil.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you, members.
Sorry. Sorry
I didn't
about
want to hear
that.
what I had to say either, but my name is Jim Burke. I am with Burke Civil Site Engineering and offices here in Quincy. And which way am I going? Perfect. You know, we have an existing residential lot, and we're looking to upgrade it to proposed residential lot with two buildings with 3 units. The civil engineering really kind of just fell together on this. The soils ended up being really good. We had a coarse sand that allows for the infiltration of the runoff. We didn't change the watersheds too much. We, reduced the watershed heading towards Greenleaf Street, so that reduced the runoff towards Greenleaf Street, and we captured actually 100% of the impervious area proposed for the lot, and we're putting that into 4 6-foot diameter leach chambers. That's proposed to infiltrate into the ground, and we're reducing the peak flows and the volume as well, meeting all the stormwater management for that. As far as the utilities go, we actually have the advantage of both having water and sewer on the site that we're going to connect to and minimize the disturbance to Greenleaf Street itself. As far as the parking goes, you have 2 spaces per unit. Snow storage, it's there. You have the area behind the house on the right, and you have the extension between the 2 buildings. So you have some snow storage there, so I'm really not too concerned about that. And then obviously, if you have to remove it, you'll have to remove it. But I'll be here to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions from the board? Don't run away. Don't run away. I have a question.
Shoot.
Now I may have two questions.
All right, I'm up for it.
Okay. Number one, the green space for the site. There's not a lot of green space for this property. It's all building. There's no green space really anywhere. And in the back, more to the architect, but the space between the stairs and the property line is very narrow when you consider that. But there's not a lot of green space on this property, on this project. You can really walk a dog.
As far as the green space goes, I mean, you're right. I mean, there's a decent-sized driveway, about the same size as the building itself, providing access into covered spaces for parking. You know, as far as, you know, you can dress that front up, I think, from a landscaping perspective, as well as in between the buildings and along the rear, along the northeast side of the property line. But I
Just an
agree.
observation, I don't think there's a lot of green space. That's just
Right.
an observation on my part.
Okay,
So,
sure.
that's all I have. Any other questions
Yeah,
from the board?
I'm just curious, you said you ran into sand when you went down, because that's an old section of the city that hasn't been disturbed. How deep did you test?
You know,
I'm just curious, because,
it goes a while. You know, like I said, that so the way the topography works up there, it looks like it was some sort of like a cane terrace, which is like a geological formation that has it's all sand.
that's what caught my eye, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it's
Sand to
how
like-
far it goes down, I'm not
That's what I
sure.
mean, did you go down 6 feet, or did you?
Oh, yeah, we went down. I think we went down at least 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, that's sand, interesting, thank you.
There'll be good drainage.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
all right, thank you. Okay. All right, does that conclude your presentation, Mr.
Yeah,
Fleming?
that concludes our presentation. The only, I would like just to respond to you, Mr. Kelly, that, you know, we understand that there's not a lot of green space on this, but we did try to focus on having a nice front yard. So there's a decent front yard of green space. But we also understand that the department always asks for opportunities for residents to be able to have a place for their dog. And there is an area of green space that's also been created in the back of the site. The goal is not to really utilize the right side of that building, because, you know, for privacy reasons, other than the deck that you mentioned, Mr. Foley, but really to kind of use the front yard and also the rear yard. But at least that gives an opportunity for the
Where's
residents.
the front yard?
What's that?
The driveway?
No, the front yard here. There is a front yard in this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there is a yard, and there is green space in that front area, but also there's green space in the back as well.
Okay. All right, thank you. This is a public meeting, so is there anyone out in the audience that would like to speak on this project? Councilor Jacobs?
Hi, good evening. I'm Councilor David Jacobs. Those of you who haven't met me yet, I haven't spoken before this board just yet. So we met in a community meeting back on, I think it was March 18th, so it was a while ago, in this building downstairs. It was, you know, pretty sparsely attended. I think we had maybe, like 6 or 8 folks there. Mostly, you know, direct abutters. You know, I think that there was some consensus reached that, you know, this project, you know, did have some aesthetics, you know, to it, and they were willing to make some changes to the front. But, you know, they also addressed, you know, some of the same concerns that you folks have addressed here tonight. One of the main concerns, though, that was brought up was the owner of the house at 96 Greenleaf Street, which is right in this area right here. You're like right here. It's like a split lot. So there's like a house in the front and there's a house in the back. So I don't know if it was on the map there.
Yeah.
But that house is pretty much on the property line in the back. I mean, it's maybe 4 feet from the property line. I don't remember.
6 feet.
Yes, so we'll say 6 feet. You know, we're talking about this new construction is the actual physical structure, I think you just said, is 10 feet from the property line. That deck probably comes out at least 4 feet. I would imagine it's at least 48 inches off the house. So, he said there's 10 feet, so now we're down to like 6 feet. Let's say there's 6 feet on the other side, so we're talking a difference of 12 feet, between houses, that's pretty tight. There was also a concern brought up, again, particularly about this house, and it just happens to be the proximity, this house is 150 years old. But the glare off the windows, potentially, some of those new windows, reflect a lot of sunlight. So there was some concern about the glare from those windows potentially melting siding on the existing home at 96 Greenleaf Street. We didn't talk at that meeting about increasing the size of the decks, which, when you're talking, kind of makes sense. But then, again, you're inviting people now to what I thought was more of an egress to, I don't want to say recreate there, but passively recreate on a deck that's, maybe 8-10 feet, from somebody else's house. So I feel like that's just a little close. I could see why there's a benefit to that for this, but I also could see the detriment to the people who are also already living, in the property next door. So I also have concerns about the snow removal. The same thing you mentioned, as someone who lives at the end of a dead-end street, I can safely say I have 50 feet of road frontage, and I couldn't park my car in front of my house this winter for about 2 months. So, because my street's, got 20 houses on it, so I've got 20 houses of snow in front of my house. So that can definitely, as someone who sees that happen all the time, and I have a 3-car driveway too, so luckily I have plenty of off-street parking, but that would not really, be the case yet for these folks. But, like I said, the meeting was well attended. I felt like the petitioner was very open and honest about what they were trying to do. I think in general, the tone of the meeting was, one of, we're willing to work together here. But again, I just have some concerns about the proximity of those back 2 units. Well, I guess it's 3, but that second building is rather close to that existing building on 96 Greenleaf. So that's all I had to say. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor. Is there anyone out in the audience that wishes to speak on this project? Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay, being none. I do have one letter. The letter is written. It says, "Hello, I'm corresponding to the project. I live at 94 Greenleaf Street. We live in a single-family home across the street from the proposal. Although we are delighted that the sober home that has been part of this neighborhood for years will be replaced, we still have some concerns. 12 total parking space is unrealistic for 6 townhouses, with 3 of those 12 spaces proposed for visitor parking. This will cause increased spillage of parking along both sides of Greenleaf Street, which is already getting challenging to drive along. If you were to drive down Greenleaf Street, you would see other residents building that do not have parking areas, but people choose to park in the street. They will park in the street on Greenleaf and down the side of the street that are much narrower. We would rather see 2-car garages in each unit and keep at least 3 visitor spaces. We understand that space is limited as every piece of this lot is being carefully placed and variances are being applied. But we would like to see at least 2 less townhouses being built. Because of the parking issues, we do not support 6 townhouses. Thank you for listening. Herman and Janice Lumpkin." Okay.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, through you to the board, I would also point out that the department did receive, and Attorney Fleming, we did receive a call from an abutter, Lou Garante. He's at 116 Putnam Street. So he has the backyard that crosses over the back of this site. I think he might have had some mobility issues and couldn't make it tonight. We were expecting a comment letter. If one comes in, we'll forward it, but perhaps you could potentially reach out to him and make a connection there.
And his name again was?
Lou Garante, 116 Putnam Street.
Okay.
Okay. Sorry, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
I think 1 month on a continuance.
All right.
Would be the department's recommendation.
Would like to push this meeting out for 1 month. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Is there a
second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Sorry, that date would be September 9th.
So we will see you on September 9th.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Great, thank you.
All right, the next order of business will be a public hearing at 575 Quarry Street, Planning Board Case Number 2026-08. This public hearing shall be conducted to review the applicant of Galvin Development at 245 Willard Street, Quincy, Mass. 02169 for site plan review on the Quincy zoning ordinance Title 17, Section 9.5.1, site plan review and special permit under Section 5.1.17 parking waiver. The applicant proposed the removal of the existing single-family house and construction of 7 townhouse-style units along with garages and surface parking for a total of 28 parking spaces. The proposal will also include professionally designed drainage controls and landscaping. The property contains 21,550 square feet of land and is located at 576 Quarry Street. The subject property is located within a residential A zoning district and shown on Assessor Map 4073, Lot 52, Plot B. Mr. Fleming.
Thank you, Mr.
Surprised
Chairman. I'm
seeing you
back again. Yeah, I'm doubling up on you. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Again, Edward Fleming here on behalf of Galvin Development. I'm joined tonight by Sean Galvin, who you all know, and Jim Burke, again, who is our engineer, and Brian Sluty, who's our architect. As you indicated, Mr. Chairman, this property is located at 576 Quarry Street. It's zoned Residence A. And as you know, Residence A doesn't permit multifamily use. So we first sought relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals. We presented the matter to the zoning board, and we were granted a use variance as well as other variances needed for this development. So we've been approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. We did so a little bit differently than a lot of other proposals because of the use variance need, and therefore presented this matter to the zoning board. This is a large tract of land. This is actually a large parcel of land, I should say, 21,550 square feet. It doesn't really fit into a Residence A kind of box. A lot of the Residence A houses all in that particular area on County Road and even on Quarry Street, most of which are 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 square feet in size. This particular site sits on Quarry Street, and it's a 21,550 square foot site. It's an interesting situation that Sean Galvin finds himself in because he's revisiting an area that he visited 15 years ago. Because 15 years ago, Sean developed 580 Quarry Street, which is right next door, and he constructed townhouses that look very much like these townhouses here. And when Sean was proposing that development at 580 Quarry Street, he was actually in discussion with Miss Remick, who owned this particular property. Unfortunately, during his discussions with Miss Remick, he was unable to finalize the agreement because Miss Remick passed away. He had every intention at the time to include this site in the 580 townhouse development. And so Sean had prepared plans that actually included actually these townhouses on that very site. So Sean can talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment, but to give you a little bit more history. Notwithstanding that, Sean moved forward with the 580 development. That was very well received by the community. In fact, if you drive by that today, I would say it looks almost exactly like it did when he constructed it. And that's credit not only to Sean and the quality of the construction, but it's also a credit to the folks that live there, because they take great care of their property. So what Sean wants to do is essentially, and so what happened was, Sean was then contacted by the attorney who represented the family. And the family had gone through a number of different discussions and how they wanted to move forward with it. And while they did so, the property became even more and more deteriorated and hasn't been used for years, and the house is vacant and is actually in need of demolition. But the family attorney contacted Sean, and it offered the property again to him, and Sean decided to move forward with it. So Sean now presently has that property under agreement, and will be closing on that within the next week. The proposal that he has tonight is to take down that single-family house and finish the original development by constructing 7 new townhouse-style residential units on the site. They're very well designed. They're designed very much like 580. Although they may be a different color, Sean's showing the green. I'm not sure if the neighbors are going to tell him, no, you got to change the color. But it will be a beautiful color nonetheless, and it will be as well constructed as the other units have been. The new townhouse style units provide actually more parking than the proposal at 580 because of the way the site lays out. So Sean's able to actually provide two garage spaces for each one of these units, as well as additional parking in the driveway that will serve each of these homes for another 2 spaces, for a total of 28 parking spaces. So each unit is actually going to have 4 parking spaces, which is great in this particular neighborhood, and it will allow for not only additional parking for the units, but also additional visitor parking spaces. Sean's going to talk about the details of the building in more detail in a second. We are requesting 2 items of relief from this body, site plan approval and also a special permit parking waiver. The special permit parking waiver is more associated with setback-related issues as opposed to number of spaces, because as I said, we're actually providing 4 parking spaces for each unit. And then lastly, we had an opportunity through Councilor Ryan to have a neighborhood meeting. It was actually very well attended, not only by the folks that live at 580, but a lot of folks that live in the community. It was a good crowd. A lot of great questions were asked during that meeting. I think the general feeling we got when leaving the meeting is that people were quite pleased to see this style development there, because 580 has been so well received. And they think it's going to be a nice fit for the community. In fact, a number of folks came up to us afterwards and talked about how happy and comfortable they were with this. But it was a great discussion with the folks. So we appreciate Councilor Ryan hosting that meeting. We actually had it at the Common Market, and it was very well attended. So with that, I'd like to turn this over to Sean. Let Sean kind of give you a little bit more personal story about how this has moved forward.
Thank you, Mr. Fleming. Good evening, Mr. Galvin.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Chairman, nice to be here again. So, yeah, as Eddie indicated, this has been a 15-year journey for us. This was part of was hopefully going to be part of a development that we had created in 2012, which is very similar to what we're proposing. And I'm going to learn how to use this in a minute. There we go. So this part of the city is the end of Quarry Street heading to Milton. The site you see is outlined there in yellow. The site just above that in blue is the 580 Quarry Street development. This block is bordered by Quarry Street, Robertson Street, Willard Street, and County Road, which is my neighborhood. I grew up here, so I'm very familiar with this. It's a mix of businesses and multifamily houses. The 580 project, we worked with the McDonald family that owns the Common Market and that was their property. They were going to develop it, and they sold it to us, and we created the 18 units with the intention of doing 25 units, which would have included this parcel, but as Eddie mentioned, we were not able to close that part of the deal. Let's see, there we go. There we go. So this is the existing house that's on the site. It has been vacant for over a decade, and it is in tough shape. You can see the garage roof has collapsed in on itself, the chimney is falling down, and the building department, when we went in to see them, we were ready to issue several citations to have the property secured in some way. We went in and explained that we were interested in developing the site, and we told them that we would take care of these issues if we were granted the permits. So we did, as Eddie mentioned, we had a community meeting with the counselor. We had a bunch of neighbors, some I had met before, some I had actually sold units to over at 580, came and gave us a lot of comments. We had some good discussion, I think, and so we went forward with our proposal. We went to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and we made our presentation there and received the necessary permits to present, to move forward with the project as we presented it. What you see here is the existing conditions, is this, the single-family home and the two-car garage, but you can see it's quite a large lot. It's a pretty level lot as well, and we're familiar with it in that we did the project next door, so we kind of know the conditions that we're expecting. It's West Quincy. You're either going to get beautiful gravel or granite. There's no in between. So this is going to be a good gravel site. So our proposal here is for 2 buildings, 7 units, a 3 and a 4. We've tried to arrange them so that they would be like a traditional Quincy home. And if you've seen the 580 development, you can see the units that face Quarry Street actually have individual driveways. And that's our thought here, is that you would pull into your driveway and then you'd have your garage beyond your driveway. So that's why there's so many parking spaces. It's very unusual, even in my bigger projects, for us to be able to come up with this kind of parking ratio. But I certainly think it's very much like a single-family neighborhood. And that's what we tried to create next door, was a village feel, so that you'd be able to come home, pull into your driveway, and walk into your home. As I say, the topography on the site, it's basically flat. We're not doing much to change that. We are redirecting the flow so that it all goes into an underground system, which Mr. Burke has done a wonderful job designing. It's going to hold about 11,000 gallons and recharge it into the gravelly soil, which I know is there. This is what the original project was supposed to look like. It was supposed to give us an idea of those 18 units that had been built in 2012, and these are the 7 units that we're looking to construct now. We did a landscaping plan, so the comments that we got were about separation and landscaping, so we tried to spend some time on this. The site where it abuts the 580 site, there's a large amount of vegetation there. We're going to address that, remove the invasive stuff, and kind of dress up what's left between it. We're proposing, I think this was 3, 6, 9, 13 new trees on the site. Those would be cherry trees. Our trademark tree is the pear tree, which is next door, but we've been told those are also now considered invasive species, so we've switched to the Guazan cherry tree, which is nice, blooms about the same time. The neighbor in the back, we abut a neighbor who actually faces Willard Street, and they've been there a long time. They were at the meeting. They did have concern because they do have a garden at the edge of their property as well as a pool. So we tried to create a separation between us and them. We've added 2 trees and the green giant arborvitaes, which will grow about 1.5 feet a year. So we'll bring them in at 6 to 8 feet, and then they should pretty much block the view within a couple of years. We're also proposing a white vinyl fence that separate the 2 properties and the single-family homes that run along County Way, with some landscaping there as well. The rest of it is irrigated lawn. We are, of course, across from O'Rourke Field, so the dogs can be here and the dogs can go over there. Again, we're looking for that single-family home feel, village feel. This is actually 580, so you can see the similarity between the design, although we were asked, and we will accommodate, they asked that we not do them green. So we're considering a blue-gray, a steel gray, which would go with the charcoal-colored roof, which I think is on a material sheet here. Just an idea of the architectural details. These are all going to be, again, used into the new project. So there's the gray that we're looking at. And again, the vinyl fence. The other question that came, we've got 7 units, and technically, each person could bring out their own trash barrels, but that's, with a recycle and a trash barrel, that's 14 barrels out on the curb on Quarry Street. So after some discussion, we did include a dumpster enclosure and a dumpster in on the property. That was not on our zoning presentation, but is on this presentation. It'll be the condominiums associations, it'll be up to them how they want to operate that. But the city is willing to pick it up once a week if they provide the dumpster. Just a couple other views of the building. The back of the building, and again, the one on the left is the 3-unit building. And that, because of the Mansard design, we don't have the roof above the roof line. So the height of these buildings is pretty limited for townhouses. And the view from the neighbor on the Willard Street side is, again, only a 2-story building, 2.5 probably realistically. And the decks that you see on the 3-unit building have stairs to the ground because it's only about 6-7 steps. The stairs on the right, we've provided alternate egresses through the garage, so there will not be any stairs. They'd be about 13, 14 steps, and we thought would look a little unsightly. These are the elevations. Brian did a nice job translating the plans that we had before. These are all 2-bedroom, 2-bath units. The size of these will be somewhere around 1,550 square feet, plus or minus. I don't think that, other than that, if you've got any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. And again, Jimmy's here on the drainage, and Brian's here if you've got any particular architectural questions.
My first question would be, Miss Remick, is that from the famous Remick family?
No, I don't believe so. I have not been able to ask the question.
So you couldn't get her to will it to you when she died?
That would have been nice.
That would have been nice.
That would have been nice.
No, my only comment is that I know that you guys do great projects, and
Thank you.
I think it's nice. It's the neighbors, if they like it, and I think it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Any other question? Mr.
I
Foley?
just, one thing, thank you, I agree, this is nice. The only thing, you mentioned the white vinyl fence separating 2 properties. So I might have missed it, I didn't see that in here. I saw the, the vegetation, the green giants, and I really like that. I kind of like the soft border between the 2.
So that's.
And then all of a sudden, the white vinyl fence popped into my imagination.
So here's the fence.
Okay.
So the brown line
Oh,
here.
you're right, I'm sorry, you know what, it was right in front of me the whole time.
And that will come up to the edge of the building. And there are 2 single-family homes here. This is a 12-unit apartment building here, but this is also single-family.
Okay.
So we wanted to
Well,
screen those.
I might have missed, and I apologize. So the
Sure.
white vinyl fence is gonna go on the right-hand side of this image.
That's correct.
On the left-hand side.
We're going to leave that,
units,
exactly.
That's what I was hoping.
And we're up tight against the back of those buildings, so leaving the foliage that's there, I think, is
No,
probably a better
I saw
separation.
it, and I think it's great, you're gonna thin out I think that's, I misunderstood. I thought you were gonna put the white vinyl fence there, and I thought that would be a travesty.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you, I'm good, Mr. Chairman. Thanks.
Chris? You would? I just want to say, Mr. Galvin, that's some green space. I like that better than the last project I seen. It gives a little more area for people to enjoy out in the yard. It looks good. It's a nice-looking project, and like I said, you usually build good projects around the city, so just remember the men and women of the city of Quincy when you're choosing a developer that will build this, or subcontractor, since you are the developer. Thank you. Okay.
That's our presentation.
Okay, that concludes your presentation. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that would wish to speak on this project? Counselor?
Virginia Ryan, Ward 4 Counselor. As Solicitor Fleming had stated, we had a community meeting last month, and it was very well attended. Everybody knows that the Galvin Development Company does great work. Their development is right next door at 580, and it would be very well received in the neighborhood. There was a letter that was submitted via email to the planning board, and I would hope that they would address the questions on, yes, that would be greatly appreciated. And if you could include me on the responses with regards to any resolutions, that would be greatly appreciated also. The neighbors that attended the meeting approve of this project very much so. Thank you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Council. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on this project? Okay. We did get one correspondent letter. It says, "Hello, I am the owner of a 580 Quarry Street condo, and I have just received a notice of the public hearing regarding 576 Quarry Street, Planning Board Case 2026-8. Given the late notice of this meeting, I cannot attend in person. When the Galvin Group built the original 580 development, there was no additional parking. Each owner has 2 garage parking spots. However, there's no parking on the property outside of that. If you notice the public hearing letter, you mentioned that the applicant proposed the removal of a single-family home and construction of a 7 new unit townhouse-style unit along with garage and the surface parking for a total of 28 parking spaces. In review of the online plans, it stipulates only garage parking for the 7 units. Can you confirm if there will be additional surface parking? If so, would the original owners of 580 be able to use them for an overflow? I raise this question because the traffic is absolutely horrible, especially given that there are no available parking in the area. What is the proposed solution, especially with the additional 7 units? Also, I would like to ask the city to consider installing speed bumps between 576 and O'Rourke Park. I am one of the units facing Quarry Street, and every day I witness drivers turn from Robinson Street onto Quarry Street, rev up their engines to speeds that is to an unhealthy rate. I'd like to propose that the city, Quincy, the police, monitor the situation and ticket drivers who do this, driving above the speed limits in this area. I would also like to know the timing of the construction and understand what is the plan for pest management and to reduce the noise throughout the process. We are already hearing noise daily from the development that is approved in front of Darcy's, and this will only magnify the situation for us. Most unit owners either work remotely and do not have the option of going into the office or are retired and are home all day. Lastly, is the city planning on mitigating the increase of traffic on Quarry Street, especially with the hundreds of renters living in the apartment building further up the street? Thank you for addressing these issues in tonight's meeting. I look forward to hearing back from you. Cheryl Wheeler, 580 Quarry Street, Unit 3, Quincy, Mass. 02169.
Still have comments outstanding, so the recommendation would be continue 1 month to September.
Okay, we have a suggestion of moving the meeting out to the September 9th meeting. Is there a motion?
Propose that we move it to September 19th meeting.
Second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. We'll see you in September. September 9th.
Yep.
No, excuse me.
Thank you very much.
You were welcome.
Thank you.
Just double check. September. Yeah, 9th. Because we skipped all of August. There you go. Then we can't read the letter. We have to read the name.
Is everyone all set? You all set? This one, you all set? You need a break or?
No, you just stepped at the, just one of the members.
Oh, okay.
Excellent.
All right. All right, the next order of business is planning board. There's a public hearing at 150 and 150 Newport Ave. Thank you. Planning Board case number 2026-COC02. This is a public hearing and shall be conducted to review the applicant of Maple Multifamily Land East LP at 40 Washington Street, Suite 20, Wellesley, Mass. 02480 for certificate of consistency under the section 8.5 and 9.3.3 and section 10 of the city zoning ordinance. The applicant proposes the construction of 525 units within 4 residential buildings along the structure, garage and exterior surface parking for a total of 540 spaces. The proposal will include residential amenity spaces and professionally designed drainage control and landscaping. The property contains 403,163 square feet of land and is located at 100 Newport Ave Extension, 150 Newport Ave Extension, 17 Oak Ave, and 34 Myrtle Street. The subject properties are located within a Residence B, Residence C, and a transit-orient district, and are shown on the Assessors Map 6162, Lot 40, 2219, Plot E and C, and Map 6159, Lot 30. Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. For the record, Attorney David Mahoney, and I represent Trammell Crow, the applicant before you tonight. As you read, Mr. Chairman, this is a application for a certificate of consistency for 100 and 150 Newport Ave extension. To orient you where the site is, heading into Boston on Newport Ave extension on the right-hand side by the North Quincy MBTA station, there were 2 buildings that were occupied by Granite Telecommunications. They vacated those buildings and moved across the street into State Street South. So you've got 2 empty office buildings now, and Trammell Crow is proposing the project that's here before you. Many years ago, this board recommended a overlay district, which started on the other side where the Abbey is located and the Target and the other retail uses that are there. Recently, the city, with the recommendation of this board, the passage by the council, recommended the transit-oriented development map be expanded to include this site. So as a result of that, you see it in Crown Colony, you're seeing it here. Empty office buildings are being developed and taken down and turned into residential. This is a great location for residential. It's right at the North Quincy MBTA station. And I know, having represented DJ McKinnon and Bizzuto, that project leased up. It's one of the fastest Bizzuto's project has ever leased in the country, is the location of the Abbey. So this will mirror that. There'll be no retail on this, but strictly residential. But it mirrors that. It's the same thought process on the other side of the tracks. We had a neighborhood meeting on June 16th that was organized by Councilor Hubley, and about 30 people came. We had different workstations. It was a lot of questions. It's a big site. It's a new use for the site, so there were quite a few questions that the neighbors had. There were about 30 people or so. And Councilor Hubley, I've been in touch with him a couple of times. I thought he was going to be here tonight, but apparently sent communication, Mr. Stevens, that he wasn't going to make it tonight. But I think the best thing to do at this point, I'll turn it over to Kevin Saperco, who's the Director of Development for Trammell Crow Residential. Let him review the presentation with you, and then we have all the other professionals here to make their presentations. Kevin?
Good evening, everyone. Chairman, members of the board, Kevin Saperco with Trammell Crow Residential, 40 Washington Street in Wellesley, Massachusetts. So let's make sure I can work this. So as Attorney Mahoney alluded to, we just have some slides of the site. So it's 4 parcels really. The Myrtle Street parcel and the Oak Avenue parcel are in the top left of the screen on the left side as kind of part of the 100 Newport Avenue parcel. And then on the right, we have the 150 Newport Avenue parcel. And then just some aerials. So looking back, the Abbey is there across the tracks on the left. We have the MBTA station right in the middle, and then surrounded by office buildings and State Street South just a little bit further on. Looking the opposite way, just shot into Boston, the Neponset Bridge, and Hancock Street. So here with me tonight, I'm the developer, with the developer, Trammell Crow Residential. Attorney Mahoney is here. Have Jay Szymanski with the architectural team, or TAT, Nick Delacava with Allen and Major Associates, Sean Sanger and Chloe with Copley Wolf, and Matt Keeley with Traffic, who will all give their presentation after I finish up. So just a little bit about us. Trammell Crow Residential, also TCR is a little bit easier. We've been a company since 1977, headquartered out of Dallas, but we are the boots on the ground local presence in Massachusetts. Should have introduced Mark Baranski as well, but he is also with Trammell Crow. We are residents of the state. I've grown up here my whole life, so Massachusetts is home to me, and been here and plan to be here for a very long time. One thing that I think really sets us apart, we are vertically integrated as a development company. So face you're seeing tonight will be the face you see for however long this project takes, through this process, through the construction process, through the lease-up process, and the operations process. We are involved, everything is flowing through us, and another great benefit is we are our own general contractor. So I sit on the development side of the office, and then on the other side of the office is our construction team. So we will have our construction staff on site when this project is getting built every single day. If there's ever a problem, they will call me, and then we will solve that problem together. So it just makes it a very easy, it's never easy doing construction, but it makes it a very well-communicated process. These are just a few pictures of what we've done in the Northeast. So we have, most of our projects have been in and around Massachusetts, mostly suburban. We have done one project just outside of White Plains in New York, but for the most part, our projects are here up in Massachusetts, and has been with the same development team that's here with me. So TAT has been our architect on a lot of these. Nick has been our civil engineer on a lot of these. Sean has been our landscape architect on a lot of these. So, you know, this is a team we're really, really comfortable with. And just a couple pretty pictures of what we build. So very community focused. So we have great amenity spaces, both interior and exterior. We'll have our pool outside with seating. We'll have grill stations out there. We'll have plenty of landscaping out there. Just make it a really nice, welcoming feel that we want our residents to enjoy. Inside, we'll have full-on clubhouses, so that'll consist of game rooms. It'll have a fitness center. It'll have co-working space for people to work at home. It'll have our leasing office, and then it'll have kind of the fun part where sometimes we want to do a speakeasy. So that's what you see on the left side of the page, where it's just, you know, a kind of hangout room that residents can go into. Or, you know, we've done craft rooms when we think there's going to be a bunch of children at the site, which we're not expecting here. But those are all within our clubhouse. And when we move into the units, it's kind of your typical Class A, what you would expect for newly built, large-scale multifamily development. So we'll have all stainless steel appliances. We'll have in-unit washer and dryer. It'll be a great place for residents to live. So as we move into the site, I'll just give a brief introduction before handing it over to Jay. So top part is obviously the site as it is today. So 2 office buildings. The left side is 4 stories tall, and the right side is, call it 4.5, because the planned north side of that kind of sticks up some. So in total, the left building, 53 feet high. The right side, the 150 Newport Ave, is up to 71 feet. What we are proposing would be, now if we're looking at the bottom, as we move from left to right, 5-story building, another 5-story building, 5-story building, and then on the right will be 6 stories in total, which will be parking below grade, and then the building will go on top of it. So it's a podium-style building. And one thing about this site that we really liked is it's a big site, so it's 9 acres, and that gives us plenty of room to play with and how to orient things. And so it kind of lends itself into 2 different sites where we can play around with the programming. So we're thinking right now that the left side will be more of a country feel, and then the right side will be more of a town feel. It's something that we've done in Harrison, New York, with Jay and his team as well, where residents will kind of gravitate towards one, whether it's a town or whether it's a country, and it just gives them optionality rather than just building 520 units of the same look and feel. And it gives them a lot of opportunity to play with, and they enjoy it. So impervious percentage today, 90%. As you can see, it's just buildings and parking lots with very minimal landscaping. What we're proposing will be 72% impervious, which comes out to about 1.7 acres of net new green space, and then plenty of landscaping to go around, which Sean will touch on in a bit later. There are just under 800 total parking spaces out there today, and we are proposing 540 split between the 2 sites. This is just kind of a straight-on shot of what it is today and one of the renderings we have. And now I will turn it over to Jay Szymanski with the architectural team.
Good evening. Again, my name is Jay Szymanski. I'm a principal with TAT. We're the architects for the project. I'll just walk you through the architecture just briefly, just give a sense of the look and feel. So this view is across Newport Ave Extension, looking towards the west. The intent was to create a defined street wall along Newport Ave Extension that doesn't exist today. Right now, it's just a wide open parking lot. So we wanted to bring the buildings up to the street. In doing that, we wanted to create some variation in those buildings. So you'll see in this that the roof lines vary up and down, the front plane of the facades move in and out, and then there's a variety of different colors and different materials along that streetscape to provide some visual interest and to break down the scale and the massing of those buildings. This next image is now looking in the opposite direction, more or less in the easterly direction. Here on the far right, you can see the 6-story building that Kevin mentioned. So that's 5 stories of residential over 1 level of parking that's at grade. And you can see that parking is screened from view from the street. So there are openings into it for ventilation, but there will be screening within those openings, so you won't be looking directly at the parking. And then even on the middle 2 buildings where we have some limited parking in front of those, where those are pushed back, they'd be screened with landscapings to block the view from the street into those parking areas. And again, this shows the variation of the roof lines in the facades. You can see the top levels are stepped back, again, to reduce that massing and reduce that scale overall. And then these are just some examples of elevations. These first 2 are from the 100 Newport Ave site. Again, the variation of materials. The street-facing facades are largely brick, but we also have some cement fiber materials and some metal panel. We did include some locations and dimensions of proposed signage. Those are just placeholders, but it gives you a sense of where we'll have signage and the general size of that signage. So that's shown on each of the buildings in the package that you have. And then these are the two street-facing elevations of the buildings on 150 Newport Ave. Again, slightly different materials, slightly different colors, but it all wants to feel as one development with a lot of variation within that. With that, I'll turn it over to Nick Delacava to go over the civil engineering.
Good evening. My name is Nick Delacava, professional engineer with Allen & Major Associates with the site civils for the project. Tonight I'll be focusing on 6 primary topics: zoning and parking conformance, stormwater management, FEMA floodplain compliance, utilities, snow storage, and emergency access. This first slide provides an overview of the zoning and parking requirements for the project. The property at 100 Newport is outlined in blue, and 150 Newport Avenue outlined in red. Both properties are located within the TOD overlay district, which establishes 3 primary zoning requirements: minimum lot size, minimum lot area per dwelling unit, and maximum building height. The minimum required lot size is 1 acre. Both of these properties exceed 4 acres in size. The minimum required lot area per dwelling unit is 325 square feet. Both of these properties provide more than 700 square feet per unit, which significantly exceeds that minimum requirement. The maximum permitted building height is 8 stories. The tallest proposed building will be 6 stories, which is again that podium building all the way to the right. The TOD overlay district also requires a minimum of 1 parking space per dwelling unit. The proposed development at 100 Newport includes 228 residential units and 230 parking spaces, and 150 Newport Avenue includes 292 residential units and 310 parking spaces. Both developments therefore satisfy the minimum parking requirement. And overall, the proposed development conforms to the primary zoning requirements established under the TOD overlay district. Stormwater management has been one of the primary design considerations for the project, as existing flooding on and around the site is a well-documented issue. Today, the site is approximately 90% impervious and is served by an outdated stormwater management system that provides very limited capacity, water quality treatment, and groundwater recharge. As a result, runoff leaves the site largely untreated and unmanaged before entering the municipal drainage system, which is already known to become overwhelmed during heavy rain events. The proposed development will introduce approximately 1.7 acres of new landscaped green space and a completely new stormwater management system designed to exceed both local and state performance standards. The new system includes 8 underground infiltration systems, shown here in red, along with new drainage structures and conveyance piping, which is shown in blue. Collectively, these systems provide approximately 19,000 cubic feet, or roughly 146,000 gallons of underground storage within 750 infiltration chambers, exceeding the required groundwater recharge volume requirements. The combination of this underground storage and the additional landscaped areas will reduce peak rate of runoff leaving the site by approximately 33% and reduce overall runoff volume by approximately 43% compared to the existing condition. Capturing and managing runoff at its source will significantly reduce the project's impact on the municipal drainage infrastructure during both frequent and major storm events. The proposed system also includes deep sump hooded catch basins with proprietary water quality separators that remove sediment, hydrocarbons, and other pollutants before runoff infiltrates into the ground or discharges off-site. This is a plan showing the existing floodplain across the site. The existing FEMA floodplain was the single largest factor influencing the overall site design. Across the property, the FEMA 100-year floodplain extends from elevation 7 at the low end to elevation 10 at the upper level. The colors shown in this exhibit represent the floodplain limits at 1-foot contour intervals. Pink represents elevation 7, purple elevation 8, the darker blue elevation 9, and then that light blue represents elevation 10. To accommodate the proposed buildings, parking areas, and internal roadways, portions of this existing floodplain need to be filled. FEMA requires that any flood storage displaced by this fill be fully compensated. More specifically, the replacement flood storage must provide an equal or greater storage volume within each individual 1-foot elevation interval. To demonstrate compliance, the existing flood storage volumes were calculated within each elevation range and then compared to the proposed design to verify that all required storage is maintained or exceeded. This exhibit illustrates the proposed floodplain after redevelopment using the same elevation intervals. As you can see, the floodplain has been carefully relocated around the proposed development while still providing approximately 9,500 cubic feet or 71,000 gallons of additional flood storage compared to the existing condition. Each residential building has also been designed so that the finished floor is located at least 2 feet above the FEMA flood elevation. While portions of the surface parking areas, internal driveways, and sections of the podium parking remain within the floodplain, all occupied building spaces remain safely above the required elevations. In addition, every underground infiltration system has been intentionally located outside the floodplain to ensure it functions as designed during flood events to mitigate stormwater runoff. This is our utility plan with a couple quick markups. The proposed development will be served by municipal water, shown in red, municipal sewer, shown in blue, and private electric, shown in green. There's also an existing gas main, shown in purple, on the 150 site that currently crosses the property and needs to be relocated, kind of up near the MBTA property all the way down to Newport Avenue. Each building will receive separate domestic and fire protection services connected to a looped water main system to provide both redundancy and improved reliability. At the 100 site, a new water main will connect the existing municipal mains in Newport Avenue and Spruce Street. Buildings 1A and 1B on the left will connect directly to this new looped water line connection. At the 150 site, a second looped water main will be installed around Building 2, Building 2B, with 2 separate connections to the municipal water main in Newport Avenue. Building 2A and 2B will also connect directly to this looped water system with separate domestic and fire services. For sanitary sewer service, both developments will utilize existing sewer manholes and sewer lines already located on the property, which ultimately discharge the municipal sewer in Newport Avenue. Prior to construction, these existing sewer facilities will be thoroughly inspected to verify that they are suitable for reuse. If any deficiencies are identified, the infrastructure will be replaced with new sewer mains and manholes. This exhibit identifies the areas designated for snow storage throughout the site. These snow storage areas are strategically located within landscaped islands adjacent to the parking lots and internal driveways while remaining outside the FEMA floodplain. Collectively, these designated areas provide approximately 23,000 square feet, or roughly 1/2 acre of snow storage. Should snowfall exceed the on-site storage capacity or begin to interfere with normal site operations, accumulated snow will be removed and disposed of off-site in accordance with applicable local and state requirements. This final exhibit illustrates emergency vehicle access through the development. Each property has been designed with 2 independent points of access for emergency responders. At the 100 site, this includes 2 access drives from Newport Avenue. And on the 150 site, there's a 3rd access off of Newport Avenue and then an additional secondary access off of Enterprise Drive. Fire access will be provided to all 4 sides of every building, and fire hydrants have been positioned to provide coverage within 100 feet of each building's fire department connection, as shown here with the red dashed circles. The applicant and the entire design team remain committed to working closely with the Quincy Fire Department throughout the permitting process and will continue to addressing all comments and recommendations as the project advances through final design. So with that, I'd like to hand it off to Sean with Copley Wolf to go over some of the landscape.
Thanks, Nick. Sean Sanger with Copley Wolf Design Group. We are at 234 Congress in Boston, so I'm glad to be here and talk to you a little bit more about the site design here on the project. So just starting out, once again, you've seen the comparison here, just really of kind of where we are today and the proposed site plan and certainly the increased green space that's being proposed as a part of that design. And we'll zoom in a little bit. We'll talk a little bit more about specifics. Kind of Jay has talked through with the architecture, and I think I want to start kind of along Newport Ave extension. Really, he talked about the urban edge. We're really, making sure we're keeping that sidewalk a really, a positive and a great kind of street edge there, working with the existing tree canopy and really supplementing and reinforcing that as well. We're certainly going to be doing an analysis of those existing trees. Want to be able to keep as many of the healthy ones that we can. Obviously, we've got a lot of grading and kind of shaping there, so we'll be looking at all of that together. And then likewise with the kind of enhancing the green buffers that we have along the 100 Newport Ave side, particularly along that residential edge. We've got a lot of existing tree canopy and topography over there as well. Keeping that in place and then certainly reinforcing the green edges that we have along those, what I'll call a little bit more of a smaller scale residential units and homes over there. So once again, trying to be really sensitive to to our neighbors, the abutters, as a part of that. And then likewise, the connectivity certainly with the red line. Obviously, our adjacency here is pretty amazing. The ability to have the transit access. So in addition to the sidewalk we've talked about along Newport Ave, we've got the connectors that will get you from those buildings directly out to Newport, kind of in a north-south in the plan. Then what we're also then doing is really connecting the dots across the back. So people could come out of their homes, head to the north, and then we will have an interconnected sidewalk system that will get you all the way over to the red line T-stop. So once again, kind of looking at this from a street edge, as well as interconnecting this within, and then likewise getting over to the red line across the back as well. We've also got a lot of our amenities that are on the back side of the buildings as well. Kind of right above, I don't know if this pointer will work. I guess I can do it this way while here. We've got a dog park up in this area and up in this area as well. We've got at-grade pool and amenities that Kevin kind of talked about here. And then in this particular location, that amenity area will be above the garage. So it's an elevated location on that particular building. We are trying to get in trees as much as possible. We're really kind of squeezing those in at the back walks. Those are all kind of the bigger circles you're seeing there, proposed canopy trees. Realizing we're trying to get, canopy coverage, shade over the parking lot. So we're trying to kind of pull that plant material in along those parking lot edges to get as much of that shade as we possibly can on site. And then kind of talking a little bit about the plant material. I won't go into great detail, but I will say that we're really working with native species, also trying to get, seasonal interest, seasonal color, whether we're talking some of the service berries, the red buds, more of our canopy scale trees, ornamental scale trees along the bottom row. We will be certainly introducing evergreen as well, where appropriate for screening and buffering. And then the kind of that top row really is indicative of a mix of canopy trees that will be along the parking lot edges. We see those going in probably in the neighborhood of 3.5 inch calipers. So for not to get into landscape architecture speak, but that's going to be a tree that's probably in the neighborhood of 20-25 feet tall at day one. So we're not doing little whips. So these will be sizable trees to have an impact. And we'll get those planted in contiguous long green spaces so that those root zones are interconnected and allow for those trees to actually kind of grow and perform as opposed to kind of merely surviving and kind of staying in that stunted growth. We have kind of an initial planting palette. Once again, we've talked about the trees, the evergreens, as well as the ornamentals. Then we'll also get into a pretty lush understory plant material. That'll be a mix of shrubs, ground covers, ornamental grasses. There will be some perennials. We typically kind of cluster those really more in the amenity areas, or it's kind of accentuating a building entries. So we'll have a mix of that for seasonal interest as well. And I think that could cover it from the landscape. I'll turn it over to Matt to talk about transportation.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. Again, my name is Matt Keeley, traffic engineer with VHB. We're at 260 Arsenal Place in Watertown. So what I'd like to do is just to walk you through our traffic study, hit some of the key components, and just walk through the process. So the first step in our process is an existing conditions evaluation. So in consultation with the city staff, we established a study area of 7 intersections, starting up at the intersection Newport Ave Extension and Hancock Street, covering the 4 access points to the site, and then the 2 ramp intersections down at West Squantum. At each of these intersections, we go out and conduct traffic counts. Because this is a residential project, we focus on the morning and evening peak hours. So 7 to 9 in the morning, 4 to 6 in the evening. And based on our traffic counts, which were done in March of '26, the morning peak hour occurs from 7:30 to 8:30 a.m. Evening peak hour is 4:45 to 5:45 p.m. With all those volumes, we conduct capacity analysis to see how each of those intersections is currently operating, to sort of set our baseline. And in addition, we do a safety evaluation at each of those by collecting 5 years of crash data from MassDOT's crash database. And based on our research, none of the intersections in the study area have a higher than average crash rate. Moving forward to future conditions, our next step in the process is to evaluate our no-build condition, which is 7 years out into the future. We assumed a 1% per year growth rate based on other traffic counts in the area and other studies. We then analyzed those intersections again to see what the project, what those intersections look like 7 years into the future without the project. And then on top of that, we have to figure out how much traffic is generated by the project, and that is done using the Institute of Transportation Engineers Trip Generation Manual, which I'll touch on in the next slide. But as you can see, we've walked through this in a couple of the other presentations, but you can see the top and bottom, the existing and the future conditions. The existing traffic lights are staying as they are. The unsignalized driveway, where the red arrow is going to shift just to the west slightly. And all of the curb cuts are going to remain in the same locations. So touching on traffic generation, like I said, we use the IT Trip Generation Manual, which is essentially a database of traffic counts at all different kinds of land uses. In our case, we're generating for multifamily. With the proximity to the T station, as you would expect, a lot of people are going to be using the T to get to and from work. You see the pie chart on the left there, which is based on the demographics of the immediate area. And this population currently uses the T station quite a bit. 27% of the people in this area are commuting to and from work using the T. So in the table on the lower right, you can see what our traffic generation is expected to be. We like to focus on the peak hours because that's the traffic that you sit in on your commute. So during the weekday morning peak hour, we're expecting an increase of 139 vehicle trips during the weekday morning, and 126 in the evening. And we have a breakdown there of vehicles, transit trips, and bike and walking trips. Now, what do we do with that traffic? Actually, let me take a step back. I just want to put those numbers in context with you. On the lower left, you see an aerial from March of 2020 when the office was fully occupied. You can see the parking lot's full there. Comparing using ITE traffic generation on a daily basis, our project is slightly lower, but during the peak hours, you can see that the proposed project is only expected to generate about half the traffic that was generated by the previous office use when it was fully occupied. So what do we do with that traffic? We have to figure out our vehicle trip distribution, which is based on existing travel patterns as well as US Census journey to work data. We apply those percentages to the trip generation, add that onto our no build, and that's how we get our 2033 build condition. We again analyze those intersections to see how they're doing, and the results show that we had minimal impact relative to the no build conditions. As part of the project, we're going to be implementing a transportation demand management program, which is geared towards sort of getting away from people depending on single occupancy vehicles and relying on other modes of transportation. So that's pretty much all I have for you. I just want to end on one note that I believe the city has engaged a peer reviewer to review the traffic study, and I look forward to working through that process. And I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you.
So that concludes our presentation, Mr. Chairman. The team is here for questions. I touched upon it a little bit in my opening remarks, but I'll just close by saying, the movie Field of Dreams said, if you build it, they will come. I think the city, if you rezone it, they will build. And this was only rezoned with the overlay district in the last 6 months. And you've already attracted a national developer like Trammell Crow that wants to come into Quincy and build residential. And I think that shows the vision of the mayor, the city council, this planning board who recommended to approve it, and the planning department who studied it at the beginning. And it really is a result of the vision of all those people I mentioned, that you have a company like Trammell Crow here coming to Quincy. So the team is here for any questions.
Thank you, Councilor. Mr. Shaughnessy, any questions?
Yes, sir. I have a few questions. So you guys have been building all across the United States. What do you anticipate, like, your mix population-wise with this many units? Like, in your historic, like, how many school-age children would be in this? I know it's probably like you have to throw it against a dartboard. You must have that from doing it all the time, right?
Yeah, so this is going to be our most urban project. So there across the street is a great data point for us. So there are 610 units. And when we talked with the developer who did that, they have 7 school-age children. So
7?
7.
Of 610 units?
Correct. So
a lot of kids hiding.
Homeschool.
Homeschool.
So I can't promise we won't get to double digits, but I'm not expecting it based on that.
Wow, that's I'm not in the business like that, but that's a little shocking to me.
Yeah.
And I guess this might be a transportation question. So you were showing in the picture there, the MBTA, the bridge that goes across the tracks, so you can go either, inbound or outbound. How far is that right there, right? How far is that walking-wise from your project there? Because if I'm over in are these apartments or condominiums?
Apartments.
So if I'm over in the apartment, I'm thinking I want to go over to Applebee's or go over and get a coffee across the street. Do I have to get in my car and drive all the way around, or can I walk and go up and through the T? Or?
Yep. You can go up and through that. So that's about 250 feet from the edge of our parcel. And you can take the stairs up, go across. You don't have to walk through a turnstile or anything, and then you pop out on the other side.
And is that open 24 hours a day?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, that's a pretty cool thing, I think, because then get to the other side, right?
Yeah.
What else do I want to ask you?
And one other thing on that, because I know it's something we've talked with the planning department about. We have been in communication with MBTA. Let me see if so over here, this is where our parcel ends.
Yeah.
And then the T actually owns this building over there, just off the screen. So we're working with them on just making sure our residents can get over there safely and how that works. So a lot of our site work, we really focus on the sidewalk connectivity throughout. And there's an existing crosswalk at Enterprise Drive and Newport Ave extension that crosses there. We're seeing if we can work with them to maybe move and put a sidewalk up top directly off of our parcel. Those conversations are still in a pretty early stage, but it's something that we've heard from the planning department and we're pushing as hard as we can to.
So when you say that, you're working with them to do your own walkway up and over the T?
Just to provide kind of seamless access from where our resident, because that's the closest point of access to the T. Is right here.
Right, and before, that's where the actual entrance is to the T, or is that where their new, they just bought the building and they put their new communication center in there, I believe.
So the overpass is probably right here.
And so you're talking to them about the access for you guys, or the people here, to go through their property, to go up into the T's overwalk, or whatever, bridge, whatever you want to call it, but that's
This sidewalk is what I was saying exists today.
Okay.
It's just at the bottom. We'd like to see hopefully something just up here that can spill out directly.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then next question I had is, so you're gonna have a podium-style building on the right with parking underneath. So that's gonna be built on piles, you can steel podium, but are you gonna drive piles there?
We're assuming we are, yeah.
And the other buildings, they're gonna be foot spreadings, or are you gonna put piles down as well?
We're assuming piles as well.
Yeah, because well, I don't know if you know the history of that road, but it's like, they used to have ski jumps there.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
Yep, we've done our geotech testing, and we've assumed that piles will be underneath all.
I'm curious, why aren't you putting podium style on all your buildings? And then, so you'd have parking, and then, for sure, I don't know what the actual floodplain height is there, but, I mean, if you're on the podium style, you're automatically up 10 feet, right? Or so 8, 10 feet for every building, so that, yeah, I mean, the cars might get flooded, but the residents wouldn't get flooded. So why wouldn't you put them all up on podiums?
It really is just a cost thing. So those podium buildings are very expensive to build, and we have crafted our site around, there's plenty of constraints out here between existing easements, the floodplain, and, you know, to do 4 podium style buildings, we just wouldn't be able to afford it, get an investor who wants to invest in that building, or get a lender who wants to put a loan on it. So we're juggling all these things to get this site plan, and this is what we think is the balance between all those factors.
Money.
Yeah.
Yeah, money. Because, I mean, I look at these buildings, and I think sometimes a podium building, structurally, in my eyes, it's a stronger building. Because you're gonna have more windage, you're elevating it up, so it's gonna last a little bit longer, you know? You get a building that's 20, 30 years old, they start falling apart when they're all wood construction. So it's like, how do you make it so that she's gonna last? That's.
Our building, the 3 ones to the
Yeah.
left, that's why we have a great construction team.
There you go.
And a great
Okay.
design team. So they make sure those buildings last for a very long time. And, you know, when we aren't the owners anymore and it transitions off, we need to sell a grade A building to them that's gonna hold up for their life cycle. So we need to deliver the highest quality that we can.
And 2 more questions. Is it your intent to do all 4 buildings at the same time?
That's our intent, yeah.
It is. And storage capacity on the main line going right down the street there. Somebody's done calculations on the storage capacity with the amount of people that are gonna be there. Or do you have to dig up the whole street again like they already did?
That's something we'll work with the peer reviewer and with the engineering department on. We've met with the engineering department multiple times. So they're well aware of this project that's coming in, and we'll continue to work with them as well.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
That's it? Mr. Father Foley?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I have a few questions. It's a big project. It's in a floodplain. Are there any state approvals required for this that we're aware of?
State approval, so we are talking with MassDOT as well. It's a Section 54A approval or consent, because there came up on title that there was a rail spur that was formerly owned by the railroad that hasn't been used in a while, and is actually there before the building on the right on 150 Newport Ave was built. So Newport Ave, that 150 parcel, built their building after that. So that is one, and then the MBTA is really the other. And that's a zone of influence license for that building on 150 Newport Ave, just its proximity to the train tracks. Our building's actually going to be slightly further back from the tracks, but to take that building down, we will need a zone of influence license.
And did you use any models for future sea level rise other than the FEMA maps? Did you use any like of the Massachusetts recommended models?
I might have to turn it over to Nick, who may be able to answer that better.
The answer is we didn't, but we've been working with the engineering department.
Could you address, anyone from the team, whenever you're addressed, please come up to the podium.
Sure. So right now, the design is entirely based off of the FEMA models, but we are aware that the city has their own models from the engineering department, and we've been working with them to take a closer look at those.
Great, thank you. And just one other quick question when there's a significant storm, will there still be access at Newport Ave Extension for emergency vehicles to, evacuate or get to people in the neighborhood?
Yes, yeah, the conditions that are out there today will be improved. We're not gonna solve the flooding issues and problems that are out in Newport Avenue Extension, but we're certainly not gonna make them worse. And we're gonna reduce the amount of volume of water coming off our site by about 43%.
Okay, those are my only questions, thank you.
Chris?
Yeah, if I may, thank you. So you broke the 4 buildings into 2 parcels, and it's apparently separated by an access road to that MBTA substation, David?
So National Grid.
Oh, it's National Grid.
They own that land.
Okay.
In between the parcels, so I know it looks on the
I think
top.
number 30, page 30 is a better image of that, if you go back, there you go. So that easement road comes right off Newport now. Right now, I think it's kind of undefined, like kind of running through the parking, the parking lot, is that right? So as I'm looking at it, like, I see access closer to the grid substation. So you could drive a car across that, is that correct?
So they don't really use it for access right now. There's not even a curb cut out there. It's just their land.
I knew it was just, yeah.
So what we're showing on this rendering assumes that we can't touch any of their land. We're in communication with them
Good
on
enough.
hopefully
Yeah.
trying to put some landscaping down and prettying it up, because we don't just want asphalt right there.
The best I could do is say it was somewhat undefined right now,
Yeah.
but you're right. So I'm looking at this, just wondering, making sure I can walk across that,
Yeah.
we're closer to Newport Ave here, where you do show it, a curb cut. But okay, so that's still, in your plans, that's just gonna remain kind of fluid. There's no barrier between your 2 parcels. That's what I'm looking at here. I just wanted to
Yes,
verify that.
so this would basically, let me flip back to this. So it looks just like one sea of parking currently today, and you can see kind of that lighter tan strip in the middle.
Absolutely.
That's them. So Nick and I actually have a call with them tomorrow morning just to go through our plans more in depth. And we broached the subject about, we'd like to pretty that up, because we don't want just asphalt there when we go and build these buildings. And another thing we're working on, you can see on here how we dead end parcels right here.
That's what I was looking at, yeah.
In our ideal world, we'd like to connect those. And I think in reality, once we're built, the grades are gonna match where people can go across, but we just don't have a right. So that's something that we're trying to work on with them to let us pass
I think that'll work
over.
out fine. I was just looking at that dotted line, and so that's great. That answers my question. Thank you very
Great.
much.
Okay, that's it.
I'm good, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna need a glass of water for this. First of all, thank you for coming into the city of Quincy. It's great when we get new developers to come in here. There's a lot of open space, and I really appreciate it being in the construction industry. I'm all for development. It's a good-looking project, but I do have some questions. Since we talked about the MBTA and the area of influence, we've had projects come in front of this board before. We've approved, and then the MBTA, we still have a building up near Archie's up the street here that's still sitting. They didn't get approved. So typically, we like to have the MBTA area of influence approved prior to you coming here, so you're not wasting the board's time. So that's something that can take up to years to get. So number one, but I know you're talking with them. Maybe you can give us an update at the next board, the next time you come in front of the board, where you are with the area of influence, because that can take a long time to get.
Yeah, so
And we've had, hold on, we've had and we've approved projects that got shut down by the MBTA. Other projects have come that didn't go in front of the MBTA, and then they didn't get approved. But, so that's one thing, just please give us an update on the MBTA area of influence. Just on the MBTA, since we're on the MBTA, have they talked about that area where the bridge, is there gonna be some type of I know you've talked to them and you're talking about access into the MBTA from your property to the MBTA. Did they assure you that that's going to be open round the clock to go across to get to the other side? Or are people going to have to go all the way up and around the street?
I would want to check with them on whether it's 24/7. I've admittedly only done it at, I don't know, 3 PM maybe. I haven't tried it at 2 AM, so
Okay.
let me get back to you on that
Yep,
as well.
I appreciate that. And lastly, on the MBTA, are they talking about maybe having a drop-off area at the stairs that come down there? Are you going to be able, people going to be able to drop off at that stairs from different locations? Or, I know that's the MBTA, but have they indicated anything like that? Like ride share or anything like that? Because there's nowhere to get dropped off on that side.
They didn't mention it to us, but the way it works today is, let me try and get to a good area. All right, this might be the best one. So
There's one traffic that showed that they're across the lane.
this turnaround here.
Yep.
There are vans and shuttles from the office park that will pick the riders up there that hang out kind of on the border of our site. But in terms of redoing that, the MBTA has not mentioned anything to us.
Okay, so looking at your site and with all your buildings there, are you planning on putting some type of sidewalk back there? Because all the people are going to be coming out of that building heading that way, because you indicated that you feel that most people are going to be taking the MBTA, so they're going to need a safe access passage to that staircase, because that's going to be the entrance into the MBTA.
That's something that we're pushing for, and the worst case would be they get off the overpass, come down, and then they hit that Enterprise Drive, Newport Ave sidewalk, and then take that crosswalk. We just want to hopefully save them, I don't know, that 200-foot walk and be able to access our site directly and just have a straight shot sort of along the tracks. But that's something that we're pushing for, but I don't know if we'll eventually.
I understand that those last two questions were more MBTA orientated, but the first one was definitely, the area of influence, please, that
Yes.
one. So that being said, with the MBTA, now we'll get into the building of the project.
So one other thing, I forget if I mentioned it earlier. We were actually in their office yesterday talking about, we have another project down in Braintree, which is a little more.
You're doing the project where the registry was?
Yes.
Is that you? Okay.
Yep. So that's us as well. And there's actually, we're crossing the tracks in one instance there, so it's a little more involved with them. And this one, since we're just demolishing a building on our site, and then our next building will be further away, I'd like to think is a lot less involved with the MBTA, but it's something that is at the top of our mind, and we'll be sure to keep you updated. And we have applied for the zone of influence license, and we're really getting the ball rolling now.
So you did apply for it?
Yes.
All right, thank you. All right. Again, I did say thank you for coming into our city, but as I tell all developers that come into our lovely city here, that when you're choosing a contractor that is going to do your job, I know you're the general contractor, but when you're choosing all your subs, please choose a contractor that can provide work for the men and women of the city of Quincy. If these projects are going to be built in the city of Quincy, the men and women of the city of Quincy deserve to have the opportunity to work on a project like this. So please, when you're considering the contractors that do the sub work, please consider the men and women of the city of Quincy.
Yep.
Thank you, I appreciate that. All right, let's get into the building of the building, all right? Is this stick-built or is it going to be steel-built?
Stick-built.
Stick-built, the whole thing's stick-built, coming in prefab?
Prefab.
They're going to build up the walls and then, like, bring them in on an 18-wheeler and then, so that's prefab? Okay. All right, perfect. With the parking lot, like, we have plenty of parking lot lights out there for all that. I didn't see any renderings of any light drawings for
Of
lighting in areas. I know there's not a lot of residential in the area, but what type of lighting are we going to have in the parking lot, and how's that going to be illuminated?
We do all dark sky lighting, and I believe there is one buried in that big packet we gave you.
I'll go through it later.
Yeah,
I'll
there is a
find
lighting
it.
plan.
Before our next meeting, I'll find it. Okay.
Kevin, I can help you a little bit.
Okay, if you could come up here, sir.
Yeah.
that'd be great.
It's not a lot, but I can tell you, because we talked about it at the community meeting, typically we have fixtures, as Kevin mentioned, dark sky compliant. We're looking at our lights to be in the 3,000 level, which is a pretty warm level light, not super bright.
Pole lighting or?
Pole lighting, yep.
Okay.
And they are typically in the height of about 25 foot tall. We have a very super simple, clean shoebox fixture directing that light down. And then depending upon, we've got a rough layout just to get an idea of counts and photometrics. If any of those are located either next to our units or even the abutters, we've got a green buffer that I talked about along the kind of the right side, but we have the ability to add house height shields as well. So once again, we're really trying to get that light to be forwarded out to where we need it from the sidewalks and the parking lots and not into people's homes or at, visible kind of annoyance to your eye level.
And then lighting on the building, any lighting on the building? Downlight lighting or anything like that on the exterior of the building?
Okay.
I'm getting the whole team. You're gonna get your steps in today.
We're not proposing any architectural accent lighting, but there will be lighting at the entrances and all the egresses from the buildings.
And landscape lighting? I'm an electrician.
No, that's right. We don't have that fully designed yet, but I would guess that we would have landscape lighting, particularly at entry signs and key entry elements. Jay mentioned at the building entries. I could also see that happening in with the courtyards.
Okay.
We have the two kind of the more active courtyards that I talked about, but the other two buildings, I really didn't mention it, but there are some green spaces that are passive that I could imagine some decorative, really low level, more ambiance lighting than anything else.
And then, thank you, I appreciate that. With the powering of the building, are we coming in, do we have transformers outside the building, or are we coming directly into switchgear into the building?
There will be transformers out there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have transformers and are you gonna have landscaping around them to kind of spruce them up a little bit?
Yeah, so and it's another thing that we're going to talk with National Grid about tomorrow. Let me get back to the site plan. Let me get to the green one. So right outside up here.
Yep. So you're gonna have your transformers in the back?
And then back here.
Okay.
So on each side, that's just where we've laid them out, and it's just a coordination process with
Right.
National Grid.
Okay. Awesome. Emergency power. What do we have for emergency power? We gonna have generators? We having any type of emergency backup?
I don't know if we've gotten that far, Nick. Do you know if we planned anything?
Emergency lighting, using EBUs, battery units?
We're not currently showing any generators on the site. That'd be some coordination items we have to have with the electrical engineer to determine if the buildings require it by code.
You'll have to have some emergency exit lighting and things of that nature, so, okay. All right, thank you. And what about, has the elephant in the room been talked about, all the drainage on Newport Ave? I mean, like, that's a big issue with the city. What is your take on drainage?
So that
Adding
has
this many
been-
units over on that side.
That is the first thing that has been mentioned to us about the site and the main topic of conversation that we've had with all the city department meetings. So with the planning department, our first meeting, it was probably 75% about drainage. And so that's what Nick has been focusing on the most and crafting our whole drainage design. If I just go back to his drainage slide here, to make sure that we're not making anything in Newport Ave Extension worse.
Okay.
And that's what this design does, and we're happy to work with the peer reviewer and the city as they really dig into these plans.
Last couple more questions. EV charging stations. What do we have? Do you have any plans for the EV charging stations?
Yes, I believe that it's 20% EV day one plus future EV required. So I don't know the exact count off the top of my head that we would do day one, but we'll comply with whatever the code is.
Perfect. And you're going with heat pumps in the building?
Heat pumps, I believe so,
Heat
yes.
pumps in the building. And it looked like on that, one of those renderings, all the condensers are gonna be, are you putting all the condensers up in the center on the roof?
Up top, yeah.
Kind of hide them?
Yep.
So you won't be able to see them? Okay.
Yeah, as close to the center as we can to minimize both visibility and hopefully noise.
Okay. I think that'll do it for right now.
Okay.
But, okay. This is a public hearing. We'll take comments from the public. Is there anyone that wishing to speak on the matter of this? Or this, you in the, sir, in the back?
Hello, Board. Stephen Casella from 14 Walnut Street. I'm a kind of in a butter. I'm in a small area there. I'm not really here to address the buildings. It is more of, in 2019, I went to the zoning board because of all the apartments that were being built along Hancock Street. And
Well, sir, just is this statement relevant to the project, or is it
well,
about
it's
the past?
relevant
Is this,
to
all this,
all the projects, and this is one of them, yes.
so your presentation has to be towards this project?
Okay, I'll make
Okay.
it towards the project.
Okay, thank you.
The main issue that I was looking at was the traffic study from VHB. The traffic study stopped at the entrance to go onto the Ponset River Bridge. I come off, when I drive in the morning, I come off of my street, and it takes me 5 to 10 minutes just to be able to turn onto Hancock Street because of all the traffic. And so I'm asking that the VHB, can they extend it to include the Neponset River Bridge and the impact that it has? So right now, I just heard there's 139 cars, 140 cars in the morning. When you stack that up to 8 lanes all going to try to get on the expressway, that affects everybody in Quincy. So my reason for being here is to see if that can be addressed. I know this project most likely will never be able to address it, but it is a concern. So I'm asking, when you look at the VHB study, that impact does affect our neighborhood because of the stores like Target, all of those buildings, and now this building is 500 units. That is quite an impact on traffic. And I'm going to repeat, I know this project is not going to be able to address that, and it probably goes to a state and the Ponset Circle and all of that. But as a planning group, that should be taken into account for, one, the city of Quincy. You basically have probably 8 lanes between 3A, Hancock Street, and Port Ave Extension, all going up that ramp. Then all of those cars that are on the Dorchester side are going up, and there's only 1 lane to get on the expressway. So if the traffic study can be extended, or if this is something that you guys can put in your back pocket when you're reviewing these things, that is an impact on our neighborhood.
Okay.
So back then, I was kind of challenged by the planning board, or the zoning board, Quincy, that said they can't do nothing about it. What I'd like to do is hand these over. This would actually be a flyover that could be done as part of the traffic study on the Ponset River Bridge. The infrastructure's there to do it, and this is something I'm going to probably address with the state too at some point, like with some transportation people. So getting back to the traffic study, that amount of cars does have an impact on everybody that's trying to leave Quincy from those 3 places to get over to the Ponset River.
Okay.
Okay. The second impact that I have that I'd like to address, because I heard it earlier, is when the Target project was done, our whole community that's basically off near Cathay Pacific and stuff, we were inundated with rats. There was no control in place. We counted 20 rats in our driveway one night just because of that project. All of those people, all of the rats basically got displaced.
Well, typically, before a project gets approved, we have
I know you have
conditions.
a control system in place.
Rodent control is always one of them, sir.
It didn't work.
We'll have to try something
I can show you
different.
pictures where it doesn't work. So in a roundabout way, I'm okay with the project.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of these going up. It's just the impact that I unfortunately didn't get the notice from the last meeting until 2 days after the meeting. So I would have addressed this long before, and I would have been here before tonight, but this gave me a forum to just look at the traffic. going to be helpful for pretty much all of Quincy, because everybody goes through, has to go into Boston, has to go over that bridge. And when I sit for 10 minutes, and then to just go 1 mile over the bridge, it could take 45 minutes.
Sir, you're asking us to look at something that is the whole state. I mean, so
Well, no,
it's
that-
not.
I understand it goes to the whole state, but you as a planning board,
Right.
it affects Quincy, and affects all the
Our
projects.
job is to just approve projects, not to do the city and the state's work.
Yes,
So-
but the impact of these units is something that impacts your residents right now.
Yes.
So I'm asking you to take it into consideration.
But we will take it into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman Kelly, while he's here, and we have the traffic people here from Trammell Crow, and they've been talking to the people on the other side of the tracks that built 600 units there. So have you asked them, what's their experience on how many people on the other side, and the brand-new development that's there, how many people take the T as opposed to how many people are actually getting in their car and driving over the Neponset River Bridge? By the way, I think your flyover idea is a pisser idea.
Well,
Just saying,
The
you know.
zoning board challenged me because they said they couldn't do anything about it. And I said, I went home that night, I am an architect. I went home and I said, this is a simple fix.
All you have to do is run for governor.
Okay.
I like the idea, but have you guys talked to them across the street?
We have. I don't know about their traffic patterns going north and south, but compared to what we showed percentage-wise, they were slightly above that 27%. So what Matt was showing here was kind of general area, but since they're very immediate and right on top of the tracks, they were a little bit more than that 27% number taking public transportation.
An example, when I get to the end of my
Just one
road-
second. Just go to the microphone so everyone can hear, sir.
When I go to the end of my road on Walnut Street,
Yeah.
on a bad day, it's gridlock, and there's a bridge that goes towards North Quincy, the center, and I can look up the bridge, it's just nothing but cars. By the time I get to the next place, Newport Ave is the same way. And that's, right now, summer is better because of school's out and stuff like this, but come fall, winter, spring, it's a problem that's gonna get worse and worse and worse. So I was just trying to get something in your back pockets to consider. And I know it's a state project that's gonna do that, but it is not really this project, but it's a start.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any, sir?
All right, good evening, everybody. My name is Ryan Fawcett. I'm at 54 Safford Street, so the north side of Safford, just on the other side of West Squantum. If you look at the FEMA flood maps for Quincy, the flood waters are gonna come right up Newport. They come around through Stop and Shop. They come right into my backyard over there. So I have a concern kind of with all of the flooding that goes on in this area. I knew that when I moved into the house, but we have an opportunity here to kind of lock in what this property is going to look like for the next couple decades. So I want to make sure that we're doing it the right way, or make sure we're doing flood remediation the right way. So at the previous community meeting that we had a couple weeks ago, a lot of residents expressed interest in having more podium buildings, reducing the surface parking lot size, including more green space. If you look at the green space that they have now, there's some kind of issues I have with it. There's going to be thousands, potentially thousands of people living here. We have 1 acre, 1.5 acres or something like that of green space, I forget what it said. That's not a lot of green space for a couple thousand people. So in addition to that, the green space is adjacent to the train tracks. I don't know about you guys, I don't necessarily want to hang out and picnic next to some train tracks. So it would be interesting to me, I think a lot of people would like it in the neighborhood, I think a lot of residents in this property would like it, to reduce that surface parking lot size, move some of the lots under these podium buildings, create more of a green space between the residential property, plant more trees, a lot of large maturing shade trees. I know we saw the plant schedule here, which looked pretty good. Yeah, so we'd like to see more podium trees, less surface lots, less impervious surface in general. I know we're starting with 100% impervious surface here. But if you have 0 apples, 1 apple is a 100% increase. So, you know, we can do as good as we can do. We can do better. So yeah, less surface area lot, more podium building, something we'd like to see. Other things, you know, we had some concepts of what are ways that these people, which thanks for the great presentation, that we could do to maybe help reduce the need for parking. Across the street, massive, massive lots, right? Yeah, I go by there most days, pretty much every day. And you go there at like 11 a.m. on a Wednesday, the busiest office day, that parking lot's not very full. Maybe these folks could work out a deal with the people across the parking, across the street, or make cooperative parking, some kind of idea to just reduce the need to have so much parking somewhere you could spit on the T station from. You know, if we're gonna have a less car-dependent development, this is the place to do it. This should be the place that we try to do it. Like the gentleman said earlier, if you build it, they will come. Less car-dependent kind of development. Yeah. A couple last comments just with the landscape stuff. I noticed white fringe tree, Cyanthus virginiana, was on the plant schedule. That's a host to emerald ash borer, which is an invasive species. I would recommend taking that off the plant schedule, replacing it with something else native. But otherwise, I think this is a great place for housing. It's right next to the T. Really excited to have a couple thousand new neighbors, bringing money into the town, doing all that kind of good stuff. Hope we can make some friends over there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Fawcett. You did, Councilor Hubley did forward a comment letter.
Perfect.
Is it okay if I don't read it in the record since you
Feel
were
free
here
to
with
skip
your
it. Thank
remarks?
you.
All the board members will get a copy of it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak? In the back. How you doing, Councilor?
Hi, Maggie McKee. I'm Ward 5 City Councilor. So this is the first time I've seen news about this, but I'm happy to see the presentation. A resident reached out to me. I don't know if this is in your packet, so I apologize, but I just thought while I'm here, I would read out parts of it. She said, it's good to see a plan to redevelop the space and add more housing. That said, the scale, scope, and density of the proposal at 400,000 plus square feet, considering the number and type of buildings, do raise concerns about the impact of the surrounding streets and wetlands. And then later on, is the city's infrastructure like roads, public transit, sidewalks, green space, schools, trash removal prepared? Has the developer proposed a plan to make the area on Newport more accessible for pedestrian circulation? Should I keep going, or is this in your packet?
In the letter, you can keep going.
What's the name?
Anne Kane. I'm just selecting parts of her letter, but
If there's more in the letter, you can keep going.
okay. I'll just, there's not too much more. Okay. Has the developer proposed a plan to make the area on Newport more accessible for pedestrians? Are there plans for it to better connect access to West Squantum, Oak Ave, or Myrtle Street? Just as important, it appears the majority of the units will be one-bedroom residences. Quincy desperately needs more family housing. 1 and even 2 bedrooms are not enough. How many families will be able to live in the complex? In the housing boom, please remember the families. Is there a plan to guarantee affordable housing in the space? The development sits on a plot that is subject to flooding and protected wetlands. Newport Ave already routinely floods, and a development of this scale is unlikely to have zero environmental impact. Finally, what's the plan to mitigate disruptions during construction? How long will construction last? Will construction be limited to set hours, days? Will Newport Avenue experience closures or lane restrictions? So I thought she raised a lot of excellent points. And then I thought Mr. Fawcett raised excellent points as well, just about the parking, being so close to the T and with such a vast number of parking spaces nearby. I would love to sort of think out of the box and try to reduce the parking on site so that, and maximize access to the T so that, you know, it's just so easy to get to the T, to cross over that bridge. The other question I have, I guess, heat pumps were mentioned, but I wondered about, is this all electric ready? Is there going to be any fossil fuel infrastructure at all?
So there is an existing gas line going onto the site, but the buildings will be all electric. We may look to keep that gas line just to maybe heat the pools or something, but for the most part, everything on the interior will be all electric.
And I know you're putting compressors on the roof, but any plans for any solar or?
We've done solar on other projects, so if I flip back to our Waltham building, you'll see them. So we're not opposed to solar, and we like to do it if it makes sense. So you see that solar array on the Waltham building. It could be something that we'll look into down the line.
Thank you. And then an issue near and dear to my heart is food waste. So as we're thinking about, trash and recycling, which I hope there will be recycling as well in the building, I also hope that plans will be made to incorporate food waste pickup. The city has a preferred provider, Black Earth Compost, that will actually address the rat issue that was brought up, because as food waste is taken out of the trash stream and put into locked containers, you remove a food source. So anyway, that's my little soapbox, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor.
And Councilor, we did not have a letter
You did
from
not?
that resident,
Okay.
so feel free
I'll
to
forward
forward
it.
that.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else in the audience that, sir?
Evening, gentlemen. My name is Edward Schmidt. I'm the owner of the property at 80 Myrtle Street, 46,000 square feet building, 3 stories. I'm not so concerned about the building. What I am concerned about, what I heard tonight about the traffic. When the office buildings were there, somebody said that they had plenty of space, something about 146 cars or something. When the office buildings were there, he rented 80 spaces at the Chinese restaurant from 7:30 in the morning until 4:30 in the afternoon. And he also has a parking spaces underneath the ramp going up to the Ponce Bridge. So he didn't have enough parking when he had 2 office buildings there. So that's number one. The other thing is the traffic at night and the traffic in the morning. I live in Marina Bay. It takes me almost as long to get out of Marina Bay in the morning to get to Myrtle Street to work as if I was going into Boston. So I don't know where they're getting the traffic results from. But 5 o'clock at night over here on Myrtle Street and Newport Ave Extension, coming out of Boston, everybody cutting down to meet the expressway at the other end is murder. So I think there's something should be done about the traffic. I have no oppositions to anything they're doing there, but I think it's understated when they're talking about the parking or the traffic. Traffic is a major concern for everybody, as like you said, the whole state, but Newport Ave Extension is not a slightly traveled road. I mean, it's heavily traveled from 4 o'clock to about 5:30, 5:45 every single night. And in the morning, sometimes I have to go around the back way to come in off of Squantum Street to get down the ramp. And I'm sitting in that traffic from the ramp 15, 20 minutes sometimes, waiting to get up just to Myrtle Street. So that's my only concern is the traffic. I think it's a nice looking project, but I think something should be done about the traffic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak on the meeting? Okay, we have lots of correspondence. Mr. Stevens has agreed to read them. I think we have 18 of them, so it's going to be a little bit.
Yeah,
Mr. Stevens?
we're down one. So,
All right, so you got the floor.
Mr. Fawcett. I'm going to start with Councilor Hubley, who sends his regards. He had a conflict tonight and couldn't be here. I told him there was no vote and wanted to go ahead and give us something in writing. So, dear members of the Quincy Planning Board, I write as the Ward 3 City Councilor to formally transmit compiled feedback received from residents concerning the proposed 520-unit apartment development at 100 and 150 Newport Ave Extension in Quincy, Massachusetts, and to request that this matter be continued to a hearing date in October. Trammell Crow Residential proposes 4 buildings on 2 lots that currently contain vacant office buildings. I have engaged residents through in-person meetings, telephone conversations, email correspondence, and online communications. Attached to this letter is copies of resident emails that further document the concerns summarized below. Residents have expressed overall frustration with the pace of new development and growth throughout the city. Specific concerns regarding this project include concerns regarding the overall size of the development, negative impacts on traffic along Newport Ave Extension and surrounding roadways, existing sunny day flooding that already occurs on Newport Ave Extension, and the potential for the project to exacerbate those conditions. Parking, there are 2 schools of thought among residents on this issue. Many residents consider the proposed number of parking spaces excessive and have suggested placing a portion of the parking under a second building in order to reduce the extent of the surface parking areas outside the buildings. Other residents believe there's not enough parking. This latter view conflicts with the current community planning conventions. Noise impacts from rooftop air conditioning condenser units on the nearby elevated residential neighborhood, the lack of affordable housing, lack of meaningful green space, absence of planned bicycle routes through or past the campus, insufficient pedestrian walkways through the campus, the lack of solar panels, which residents viewed as a missed opportunity, and the exterior architectural appearance, which residents described as boxy and out of character with the surrounding areas. The plans formally submitted to the board appear identical to those presented at a community meeting held on June 16th. This has led me and many residents to conclude that the feedback offered at that meeting and through subsequent channels has not yet been incorporated or considered. In light of the volume and consistency of public comment and to allow adequate time for the applicant to address resident input, for the board to conduct a thorough review and for any necessary peer reviews to be completed, I respectfully request the board continue this matter to a hearing date in October. I appreciate the board's careful consideration of these resident concerns and stand ready to provide any additional information that may assist you in your deliberations. Respectfully submitted, Walter Hubley, Ward 3 City Councilor. Okay, there's Mr. Fawcett. All right. Hi, Councilor Hubley. I hope your week is going well. TCR multifamily project proposal. I missed the community meeting a few weeks ago and wanted to put forth a few suggestions. Given its proximity to North Quincy T Station in Boston, as well as the forecasted increase in bike trips in Quincy in the coming years, it would be really great to see the developer include a bike storage room and outdoor bicycle parking on site, convert the segment of sidewalk along Newport Ave to a multi-use path would all greatly serve the future bicycling and pedestrian needs of the city. 2, at some point this month, might you have availability to meet and chat a bit more about the upcoming adoption of blue bikes and bicycle infrastructure and safety? I think the other comment was a congratulations on Porch Fest. Best Andrew Swanson, 182 Summit Ave. Next email, June 17th. Hi, Walter. Apologies for not getting to the community meeting last night. I share the same concerns as those mentioned regarding traffic, infrastructure, and flood mitigation. My main concern is density. It is very large development for that area. A scaled-down version would be my preference. Getting rid of the concrete jungle and adding more green space would make the area more attractive. So I'm not opposed to the project itself, but the size of the project. Thank you for all that you're doing. Monica Willett, 93 Norfolk Street. Hello, Councilor Hubley. Unfortunately, we were out of town last week and missed the community meeting about Newport Ave Extension building proposal. How will this complex with the added traffic impact Newport Avenue? How do these developers plan to mitigate the additional cars on the road? Might they consider a shuttle service to the nearest T-stop or the downtown Boston? Are these developers aware that Newport Ave Extension is a nightmare during peak commuter times? Traffic is not only an imposition on commuters, but additionally it is a nightmare for patients who are undergoing cancer treatment or other serious medical treatment who need to be at Mass General or Beth Israel in Brookline during peak times during the day. Respectfully submitted, Catherine Duffick, 35 Summit Avenue. Hi, Walter. My 2 or 3 cents on the proposed TCR development on Newport Ave. I don't hate it in concept, as I think high density is not out of step with the State Street office complex adjacent to that site. What are the structures they are proposing to replace? But I do have a few critiques that I hope you will consider. Aesthetics. Quincy seems to be on track to drowning itself in unimaginative boxes. These do not seem to be as vulgar as the Soviet tombstones that line the heights of Granite Street, but they lack curb appeal and remind me more of the old D Street housing project in Southie or an old industrial warehouse than anything I would want to live next door to. I don't think you can legislate taste, and I understand the expense savings that these boxes provide for the builder, but what is wrong with making a neighborly effort to soften roof lines or add some variety to the facades and structure heights? 2, parking ratio. Approximately 550 spaces for 520 units is simply not enough. As did Fox Rock at the old hospital site, I'm sure that the developer will project that some optimistic number of residents will commute via the T and some smaller portion actually will, but they'll still own cars. I am an outlier in my neighborhood as my wife and I share a single vehicle rather than the more common 2 to 3 per household, and we have a driveway to park in. Nonetheless, competition for the curb spaces up and down our street has been quite heated since Fox Rock's Ashla Park residences quickly overflowed their projected parking needs. Most days I end up backing very cautiously out of my drive, as it usually is tightly flanked by large vehicles. Any on-site parking ratio less than 1.5 spaces per housing unit will be an absolute disaster for nearby residents. This will need to shrink a bit to achieve that ratio. 3, sustainability. I know it is early days in this project, but the conceptual pitch shows a whole lot of flat roof with no mention of solar panels. Seems like a lost opportunity. It's also a project that will sit upon paved over marshland, which is probably why there's no specific reference to underground parking. There will need to be a whole lot of work done for flood mitigation to protect the neighbors. Thanks for the updates, Rich McLaughlin, Deldorf Street. Okay, dear Walter, please tell me that this is a late April Fool's joke. This area is already overly congested with all the development that has taken place in the last 10 to 15 years. Also, am I mistaken, or isn't this considered wetlands that all of the environmental people claim to care about? This whole corridor of North Quincy, Montclair, has taken a beating. The Hotel North Quincy, Red Line Apartments, the Target, which is a shoplifters training ground. Also, this has the potential to become a housing project if things go sideways. I lived on Hamilton Ave for 71 years, born and raised, and it breaks my heart to see what has happened with overdeveloped. I'm a supporter of Mayor Koch and generally agree with his decisions, but enough is enough. I anticipate tremendous opposition from the Montclair community, whose side streets would become cut-throughs with the cars speeding through the neighborhoods. It already is difficult trying to get on Harvard Street, watching the cars speeding by one after another. Harvard Street was never this busy. It has become a major cut-through. People will turn right on Hobart, Wilson, Hamilton, Holbrook to avoid the light at West Squantum and Harvard. I could go on, but we'll save it for the meeting on June 16th. Just one more thing. I think that is unrelated to this project. Signed, Michael Flaherty, 131 Hamilton Ave, North Quincy. Thank you for sending me the notice of the community meeting, Newport Ave Extension. I'm unable to attend. I've lived in North Quincy for decades in a condo I own on Sagamore Place. Even though this project will bring in many tax dollars, are you considering the impact to the neighborhood? How much the dense development will do to traffic, MBTA's ability to include more riders, school capacity, city services, merchandisers. I would prefer a much smaller building profile or no new building. Just because we have empty space, must we fill it? Do not let North Quincy be ruined by developers who don't care about the quality of life in North Quincy. Thank you for taking the time. Mary Jane McGoey, 115 West Quantum Street. Good evening, Mr. Hubley. I hope all is well. My name is Adriana Batista Guerrera. I reside in Wollaston, 17 Exeter Street. I'm writing because I won't be able to attend the meeting this evening. I would like to voice my opinion totally against this project. The city doesn't need more buildings, it needs affordable buildings. Thank you for your time. Again, Adriana, Exeter Street. Dear Mr. Hubley, my name is Joseph Leung. My wife and I reside at Walnut Street, a few blocks away from 150 Newport Ave Extension. We're not able to attend the meeting in June, therefore I am sending this note to express our concerns about the building of 520-unit multifamily residential community at that location. In order to go north in that area, the most convenient way is to pass the Neponset River Bridge. Currently, the traffic at the bridge is very bad. We understand that the builder and the city of Quincy will make a lot of money by building 520 units at this location. However, it will cause other Quincy residents a lot of inconvenience due to traffic issues. We urge you to consider and present this issue at the meeting. Thank you, Joseph. Okay, thank you for inviting community feedback. My questions will be a common theme. What is the plan to have, how did the developer arrive at the plan to have 500 parking spaces? What percentage will be underground? What would they do with the space instead of if parking was cut in half? That number seems high to me for development directly by the train station, Target, and a grocery store. It should be appealing to many car-free potential residents. In general, I'm very supportive of adding housing, especially around the train station. I hope this project is successful. Thank you, Jen Weber. 11, dear Mr. Hubley, thank you very much for hosting the hearing. We've received your letter. I understand that the city is helping with the housing shortage. In the meantime, the Neponset Bridge has been a commuting nightmare for people in North Quincy to Boston. Is there any strategy to balance the ever-deteriorating commuting bottleneck while adding more people to the community? Thank you, Song Lu from Wollaston. Good afternoon, Mr. Hubley. I know my sister emailed you regarding her concerns over to build 500 more apartments in Quincy. I'd like to share my thoughts as well. I'm concerned over the amount of traffic this will cause. It seems Quincy is allowing the build of many apartments and condo on a daily basis. Has anyone figured out the amount over the last 5 years? Yet we have no hospital. My suggestions: suspend any permits for new building except single families. Use that space to build a new hospital. Help the people in Quincy with financial assisted by getting our electric company. Help the people in Quincy with financial assistance by getting our electric company. I think local. Many towns have it. Why not us? And proposing a bill for term limits. Thank you, Maureen Marr. 12, 13. Good afternoon, Councilor Hubley. I cannot attend the community meeting. I would like to, my objection to be recorded. 500 spots for over 500 units is not acceptable. The age-old people will take the tea has proven to be false narrative in the past development. They should be required to have at least 1,000 spots if it was approved, which I'm hoping does not happen. The traffic, many decision makers do not have to travel that end of Hancock Street to get to Boston. It is a nightmare, not to mention the 500 or so apartments they are building where Domino's used to be. We will never get out of this city. I have been driving into Boston for over 20 years after taking the T for 10 and leave earlier and earlier, and it is all the same now. There's also very heavy traffic now heading south when I'm coming home from Boston. Something has to give. Also, the suggestion to tell your neighbors and friends in Weymouth and Situate and Cohasset to not cut through, although said in jest, is simply an annoyance and, dare I say, a rude response as well. North Quincy is unpassable on weekends. Want to visit one of the restaurants in the Downs? Good luck. The traffic and double parking and simple lack of parking makes it nearly impossible now, and the surrounding neighborhoods are feeling it. Adding 500 units, which will mean at least another 1,000 people, is excessive. Quincy has done their part for Massachusetts housing shortage. Let other cities and towns step up and do their part. Thank you, Stacy LeMay. Good morning. I live at 269 West Squantum Street and recently received your letter regarding the proposal for 100-150 Newport. I'm 100% against this proposal. Quincy has already an exhausting amount of traffic, and to add 500 plus cars in an already congested area is unacceptable. Why does one need so many cars when they are so near the T station? In addition, Quincy is becoming overcrowded, and I fail to see our infrastructure can support this. Kathleen Mapp. Hello, Councilor Hubley. I hope you are well. I'm writing to you as a resident of Quincy and your constituent. I would like to express my support for the development that is proposed for 150 Newport Ave Extension, as I believe this will open valuable land to those who would need to commute and work in downtown Boston. I also believe that there would be a greater opportunities to expand businesses and revitalize an area of Quincy in dire need of change. Thank you for your letter, and I appreciate your transparency with past and present community meetings. Best regards, Robert Batista. And in addition to, this was one more from Walter. The department received one additional letter outside of the counselor. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, Councilor Hubley, hope this email finds you well. Thanks for holding a community meeting on Newport Ave development proposal. The proposal is typical for what you might expect: multifamily high-rise buildings arranged on a surface parking lot, big stormwater structures under the parking lot, minimal open space or provisions for future flood resistance. This proposal represents business as usual, that's in quotes. However, this site is far from being typical since it is subject to a 100-year floodplain and future flooding from sea level rise. In summary, the developer should consider revising the design of the site plan in the following ways. 1, increase the open green space for use by residents for respite and recreation. 2, reduce the impermeable surface parking area to enhance stormwater drainage. And 3, enhance the flood resiliency of the development by elevating the residential units above ground level parking for each building to accommodate future sea level rise. Please, below, please find additional commentary explaining these concepts. Open space. The development includes housing units for over 1,000 residents, yet open space allocation for respite and recreation for use by the residents includes only 3 small courtyards and a green space next to the MBA tracks. The residents do not have suitable access, pedestrian access to city parks in North Quincy neighborhood because they are blocked by a 4-lane highway, Newport Ave, leaving car access the only safe option for residents. The North Quincy neighborhood parks have minimal parking because most users walk there from their houses and are not equipped to serve the more than 1,000 new residents from the new development. Serving respite and recreational opportunities for the residents of this complex will rely mostly on open and green space within the development. Unfortunately, the amount of surface parking leaves little usable space left for open space around the buildings. The open green space next to the MBTA tracks is not desirable for open space activities because of constant noisy train traffic. The train tracks are separate from the green space by an existing dilapidated chain link fence, and there are no provisions on the plan to provide a solid barrier nor vegetation that could mitigate the sight and noise of the trains. Section on surface parking. Surface parking layout does not comply with the Quincy Tree Ordinance, which requires 50% of the parking lot be shaded within 15 years, referred to City Charter 311-4C. It's attached to this email. Compliance will require redesign of the surface parking lots to make room for the trees in each aisle. The amount of surface parking spaces is excessive and is well over the 1 space per unit required. As a transit-oriented development, there will be many residents that occupy this development that don't have cars. Those units should be marketed as such and offered at lower rents to attract commuters, thereby aligning with the intent transit zoning overlay. Surface parking can also be reduced by designing the buildings to accommodate parking on the first level on the residents. Reduction of the surface parking will open up surface areas for open green space for use by the residents since city parks are not easily accessible as described above. Expanded open green space will also allow for more absorptive area to mitigate stormwater naturally, thus reducing the size and reliance of below-grade stormwater tanks to handle stormwater. Below-grade stormwater tanks are very costly to install because they require significant excavation. Reducing the number and size of them by expanding the surface open green space could potentially reduce the cost of the development substantially. Condition of Newport Ave. The current condition of Newport Ave is poor. Unstable roadway is sinking because it was built on a marsh and will need to be completely reconstructed in the near term. While it is outside the scope of the development, the roadway will likely need to be raised above the floodplain to enhance its resiliency. This will be a significant effort and costly undertaking by the taxpayers that will take years to plan and execute. Development of the properties adjacent to Newport Ave may not be prudent until that roadway work is complete. Otherwise, disruption to access development by residents and emergency vehicles will pose a hazard for the residents. flood forecasting due to sea level rise. According to the Neponset River Watershed Association and the Quincy Hazard Multi-Hazard Mitigation Plan, sea level rise is anticipated in Quincy as soon as 2030 and will be exacerbated in 2050 and 2070. Refer to the attached map. The properties that abut Newport Ave were constructed over an existing marsh. The developments have historically severely damaged its function to mitigate flood due to sea level rise. NEPRA, the Watershed Association, proposed that Quincy start preserving and restoring our marshland now to prepare for the inevitable. They note that the FEMA maps currently used by the design community only indicate areas that have flooded in the past. They don't forecast flooding into the future. They recommend that starting now, developers should be using maps that forecast the future flooding so that new developments can build in adaptations now to reduce the flood risk, to reduce the future flood hazard risk. As designed, it is apparent that the developer was not aware of the sea level rise flooding hazard risk. I highly recommend the Quincy and Watershed Association work directly with the developer to educate them on the future increased risk of flooding and encourage them to modify their design to mitigate the hazard for the residents that will live in the complex. Please advocate on my behalf and add this email into the project record. Maria Mulligan, 21 Winthrop Ave. Hello, Planning Board. Hello, Planning Board. I'm writing to convey displeasure with how the developer of the proposed development of 100 and 150 Newport Ave Extension has responded to the community input and data gathering regarding the actual demand for parking in their proposal. In the meeting of June 16th, hosted by Councilor Hughley, attendees heard a plan for 520 units with 500 parking spaces. Many members of the community, myself included, requested less parking given the extreme proximity of the site to transit. However, they have come back with a revised amount of 540 spaces, about 0.5 acres more than currently planned. It's time that the Planning Board recognize that this project is being built within a quarter mile of transit next to the acres and acres of parking just across the street and adjacent to a multiple 100-car parking garage owned by the MBTA at 200 Newport Ave Extension, and have the courage to deny the request to increase the proposed amount of parking built specifically for this project. The city of Quincy, like most municipalities in Massachusetts, continues to engage in market manipulation when it comes to the required parking for new projects. What I mean by this is that what we require in our zoning doesn't align with actual market demand. This serves nobody, including those with the most concerns about more traffic who want more parking. Building more parking incentivizes people to drive, plain and simple. If you want to honor both the crowd who wants less traffic and the crowd that wants less parking for other reasons, you can't allow more parking than absolutely necessary. In other words, everyone loses if you build too much, which is the status quo right now, and look where we are. There's seemingly never enough. I would request that the actual parking supply demand data from 14 communities in and around Boston, particularly given this proposal's location much closer to Boston than other areas of Quincy, drive the discussion and the outcomes of this project more than understandable but misguided beliefs about what actually impacts parking demand and traffic. Regarding this project, I've heard people concerned that a 500-unit development bring in 1,000 new cars. This is not based in reality, particularly not in 2026 when gas is $4 a gallon. Based on the data, I recommend 0.7 spaces per unit or 350 spaces for the proposed units. This figure is an average demand for market rate developments within a half mile of a rapid transit stop. See page 13 of Perfect Fit Parking Study. In the case of this development, the furthest units are 0.25 miles from the Red Line platform, while the closest units are only 550 feet from the platform, which could arguably justify a lower ratio. If there are concerns from the developer or community members about this perceived low amount, there are many possible solutions to explore that would increase and would likely lower the developer's costs and reduce traffic generated by this development. 1, exploring leasing spaces from the MBTA parking lot or parking garage at 200 Newport Ave, or exploring leasing spaces across the street at the office developments, both of which are largely underutilized after 5 p.m. Of note, per 8.5.4.7 of the Transit-Oriented Districts Overlay, zoning overlay, Though the shared parking opportunities may not be in the development parcel, the abundance of already built parking in the immediate vicinity should not be ignored by the planning board when considering parking under the minimums. Furthermore, shared parking is explicitly called for in the planning board-owned TOD design guidelines on page 11. Number 2, charging for all on-site parking. As it is now, all surface parking in the development is given with the units free of charge. However, it is not free as it adds significant construction costs, which people without cars subsidizes as they pay the same rent but can't take advantage of the parking benefit. You attract what you incentivize, and currently driving is incentivized and not driving is punished via the subsidy. Only those driving should have to pay the costs of driving. Offering shuttle services, transit passes, bike rebates, other perks, see the Avalon Building for an example, shuttle service. This would align with the city's stated goals of increasing multimodal access. If the developer or city is unwilling to budge on the total amount of spaces, lifting and putting parking under a second building would be acceptable, though at a significant increased cost to the developer. There are ways to get creative with space and moving people around that do not require building more permanent parking infrastructure. Separately, the number of affordable units should be increased from 10%, the bare minimum, to at least 25%. As the Perfect Fit study demonstrates, units requiring the least parking are the ones with income restrictions, which benefits the residents who are rent burdened. Residents concerned about traffic impacts, and from a moral standpoint, I think Quincy's most transit-oriented housing should most serve those most likely to use transit for everyday uses, far beyond just commuting to work. Best, Stuart Rowe, and that would conclude the comment letters.
Mr. Stevens, thank you very much for that. That is by far the most letters that this board has gotten on any particular project. So the council has asked that we push the meeting out to October. I think that would be a good date, but I just want to say there's also been a lot of input from the community. Maybe the developing team can go back and take a look at some of these suggestions and things, possibly come back with a revised, whatever, you can come up with. But there was a lot of comments. The council had some comments. Just take a look at it, see what we can do. The board has some questions, come back with the answers for the board. But I think if we move this out to the October 14th meeting would be a good time. Would that work with the department, Rob?
Mr. Chairman, can I just make a comment before we push it out to October? I think that's a great idea.
Sure.
So after listening to the different letters and so forth, and the great thing about AI now is that even a stupid crane operator can look it up and see what's in there. Because when you talk about restricting parking, I believe Somerville and different areas are doing developments now where they're saying, let's not have parking, to promote people from exactly what they're saying. Like, if you have the car there, you're gonna use the car. You don't have the car there, you're not gonna use the car. And I know it seems like it's a real contrary thing, say, oh, everybody wants to have a car. But perhaps maybe the traffic department with you guys, part of your homework assignment before you come back here in October, is take a look at, like, across the country, because you guys build everywhere, across the country, excuse me, in areas where they are doing developments that say, instead of having 500 parking spaces for 520 units, you go to the 350 and make people pay for those parking spaces as well. And I don't want to discourage the development. I just think we have to try and find a balance, because the traffic is getting terrible. And of course, on the other side of the coin, right, you have all these little mopeds and these scooters driving around, no helmets. Is there still a helmet law in Massachusetts and nobody cares about it?
Motorcycles, yes, but
But anyhow, so I think part of the homework assignment for you guys is to go and look at the other places that you've built, or even like those that are your competitors that are building, or look at some of them and say, hey, what is your experience? Are you finding out that if you have 500 units and you only put in 200 parking spaces, what's the deal? How many people are using the 200? You have 300 less cars there, there's less traffic going on, and you still rented out that you still got 80% rental units. So you know what I mean? So I'm trying to say to you, come back to us in October with some homework done to say, we can still build this, and we think that, historically, we'll still rent this out at a fair market value and not have as many cars. Or maybe you'll come back and say, nope, it looks to us like you have to have cars or we can't do this thing.
All right, thank you, Member Shaughnessy.
Certainly, Mr. Chairman.
I do have some data on that, and so Quincy obviously has had plenty of multifamily development. There's one project, actually right across from here, that Foxrock built. We've talked with them about what they saw during their lease up, and they built, so you can look at parking two ways, on a per unit or per bedroom. We tend to look at it on per bedroom just because it's more apples to apples across, when you adjust for all the unit mix, whether there's more studios and ones compared to twos and threes. They struggled at the end to lease up some of their units because people still needed cars. And they're, a walk to the Quincy Center MBTA station. And they had people for their last 20 to 30 units who needed cars, even though they were very proximate. And there were no parking spaces for them there.
Which unit was this?
This was
Quincy Hospital.
the Center and Stone. Not the hospital.
No.
So the hospital is half mile down the hill to Quincy Center. This is the one directly across from here.
So having said that, so maybe in addition to looking at the parking spaces, you perhaps look at more accessible bike routes, more pedestrian-friendly sidewalks. Go and really, knock down the T and say, hey, we want to know that we can get people across the tracks so they can get onto that T and make it easier. We want to put a shuttle that'll take 530 units of people when they want to go down to Stop and Shop instead of walking down there. The shuttle runs daily.
All right, Member Shaughnessy, just let him go home and do his homework.
Okay.
And
All
we'll
right,
get him
Mr.
back here at
Chairman,
we'll get him at the next meeting.
I'll relax now. I'll
And thank
recess.
you.
Okay.
And just to touch on some of the letters that Mr. Stevens so eloquently read, at the public forum that we held in the middle of June, there were comments on both sides where we were explaining, it's a balance that we have to hold. We need to build enough parking for our residents based on what we've seen on comparable properties in Quincy. We still need to be at or above the minimum parking requirement here. And we felt like we explained this to everyone and kind of the constraints around it. So the comments in the letters are nothing that's new to us, and we're happy to meet with people and explain it over and over
So
again.
do us a favor, just go back and revisit
Sure.
it, and then come back and see us in October.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Yes.
We push this out to October.
October 14th, 2026.
How about October 14th, 2026?
Do I have a second? Second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
That was a nice presentation.
See you in October.
I will be in Ireland.
You'll be what?
I will be in Ireland.
Thank you.
Castle Island.
Not Castle Island, Dublin, in Donegal.
Nice. I know, right?
Yeah.
The
Okay.
reading
Do we have
stories
that-
to my kids.
do we have
really
any
help with
other,
that. There's just.
Guys, hey, the board,
To
Member
endorse,
Shaughnessy.
Approval not
Member
required.
Shaughnessy.
Hold on.
Member Shaughnessy.
Ally.
Hold on.
Hey, Ally, we're still in session.
Hold on, wait, just 1 second, hold on, wait.
Okay.
All right. Vote to endorse approval not required plan, 18 Albion Street.
Okay, can we keep the noise down in the in here, please?
So that's it, it's another subdivision of a lot. It's in good order, so, that's it.
Okay. Then we can take a motion to adjourn?
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, motion to adjourn. Thank you.